Good evening, everybody. It is 7:48, Monday, October 18th, 2021. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this evening. Before we get started, I just want to send another thank you to Mr. Bonds and Mr. Myers for helping us through our technical difficulties and making sure we'll be able to proceed this evening and everything they do to help us run these hybrid meetings as efficiently as possible. This meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded for storage and viewing on our district website. The public can participate during the hearings of individuals and delegates by signing up for a sheet at the front door, signing up for live audio public speaks through WebEx with a form available on our website, and also submitting a written statement through the BOE questions form also on our website. Adequate written notice of this meeting of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education has been sent to both townships and village clerks, the Star Ledger, the News Record, tapintosoma.net, and thevillagegreen.com. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Burnside, please note for the record that all board members said they would be in attendance this evening. And with that, may you please take the roll.
Board Member Susan Bergen.
Here.
Board Member Shannon Cottle.
Here.
Board President Thayer Joshua.
Here.
Board Member Anne Marie Manny.
Here.
Board Member Alyssa Malaspina.
Here.
Board Member Chris Sabin.
Here.
Board Member Aaron Siders.
Here.
Board Member Courtney Wingfield.
Here.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
Present.
You're muted, Board Member Wright.
Sorry, here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to hold this meeting via hybrid. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Sabin. All in favor? That appears to be unanimous, Mr. Burnside. Very good. So let me get through that. Okay. All right. Let me move the minutes first. I'm going to move the minutes. Make a motion to move the minutes for the executive session and regular session of September 20th, 2021. Can I have a second? Anybody in favor? Any questions? No? All right. Thank you, Board Member Malaspina. All in favor? All right. Thank you. That appears to be unanimous, Mr. Burnside. And now I'll turn it over to Student Representative Noah Morris for our board recognitions for the month of October.
Thank you. Starting with the student recognitions, the National Merit Scholarship Corporation awarded letters of commendation to 5 Columbia High School seniors for the 2022 Merit Program, while 10 students were named as National Merit semifinalists. Congratulations to all the semifinalists who will be moving forward to the next round of the process and to all committed students. Do you want me to list the students by name? Yeah, okay. The National Merit semifinalist students are as follows: Ella Servey, Aiden Cunningham, Dylan Gill, Aaron Glassman, Sidney Mannion, Jaden Park, Courtney Plaza, Calliope Reeves, Cole Strupp, and Iman Zubida. The National Merit commended students are Kai Haniff, Seth Paris, Piper Fair, Oren Van Allen, and Evelyn Vanden North. Next, Furioso string members students Jasper Thomas Yount, Felix Thomas Yount, and Brendan Dobeck, supervised by teacher Mr. Todd Van Beveren, prepared and performed at the New Jersey School Board Association meeting at the Woodlands on September 22nd, 2021. The ensemble prepared an extensive program of professional level classical music in a very short time for the event and performed at the repertoire at a young artist level. Next, Miles Cabbagestock is a super senior. He is completing his academic year with us as a Cougar while obtaining professional training in the vocational program offered through Union County. Miles was a featured presenter during the New Jersey Dare to Dream Student Leadership Conference, during which he led a powerful discussion on the challenges of creating an inclusive learning environment for students with disabilities. Miles is a champion for diversity and diverse learners everywhere. His poem, I Am, summarizes his message that such students being different is a blessing and should be recognized as such. Moving on to the staff recognitions, congratulations to Stacy Lawrence, English teacher at Columbia High School, who recently published her first collections of poems entitled Fall Risk. Renowned poets Nikki Giovanni and B.J. Ward shared their reviews of the book. It's so seldom a book of poems can contain both love poems and acceptance of grief. Take Stacy's poems to a couch, curl into your great-grandmother's quilt, and understand love and loss are one, says Nikki Giovanni. The poems of Fall Risk are beautiful and brutal at once. Lawrence is able to carve out presence and absence, the physicality of loss in poem after poem. Unsparing in its imagery, this collection turbisates between nuisance and grit, creating stunning music and powerful experience, a testament to what it's like to continue to live. I'm glad I've discovered Lawrence's work through this book, says B.J. Ward. Board member Malaspina has been chosen to present 2 sessions at the upcoming New Jersey School Board Association Conference. She will be presenting What's in Your Students' Backpacks? Information, privilege and equity, and future-ready librarians can help save your district money and solve instruction issues. Lastly, a special recognition to the K-12 District 2D visual art teachers who provided a beautiful assortment of student artwork displays K-12 for the New Jersey School Board Association meeting on September 22nd, 2021 at the Woodland. That is it for the recognitions.
Thank you. Just want to note that some of that artwork, actually all of that artwork is sitting behind us on the stage this evening. So thank you again to all the art staff and teachers and students who put that together for us. And Mr. Mano. All right. Okay. The school board meeting is a business meeting in public and not a meeting with the public. Oftentimes, it may appear to members of our audience that the Board of Education takes action with very little comment, in many cases a unanimous vote. Before a matter is placed on the agenda of a public meeting, administration has thoroughly reviewed the matter with the superintendent. If the superintendent is satisfied that the matter is ready to be presented to the board, it is referred to the appropriate board committee. Members of the board committee work with administration and superintendent to ensure that members fully understand the matter, and after the committee discusses the matter, is then shared with other board members for consideration, and only then is it placed on the agenda for discussion and action at a public meeting. I'll now turn it over to, I believe, Mr. Burnside for the public hearing on the bond refinancing.
So the bond refinancing is actually 2 bonds. They're separate, but we're going to combine them into one. There's an aggregate savings between both of them for approximately $900,000, and that's the purpose of this evening's public hearing.
Okay, and let me look to see if there are any public comments on the audio. I don't see anything on the written. Correct, this is for the refinancing. Go ahead, Board Member Smith, you have a comment?
I just want to understand, is this for South Mountain School?
No, these are old bonds. I think they were issued in 2011 and 2013, I believe. We're refinancing these bonds to issue a new bond at a lower rate to save the district money,
Ah, thank you for clarifying.
approximately $900,000.
Thank you for that.
Okay, seeing no questions, I'd like to, do you want to make the motion to bring that up now? So we can, should we move that up now and vote now, or should we just save it for the end with
The
everything
actual
else?
resolution, yeah.
You can do it now.
Let's do it.
All right.
Technically, you're not supposed to do action until you have your regular hearing on.
Okay, so we'll wait then. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burnside. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Taylor for the superintendent's update.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to our board members and everyone else who's taking time out of their Monday evening to join us. Before we begin our formal presentations and updates, I'd just like to thank the members of our SLT, the members of President's Council, and our board members who took time out of their Sunday on October the 3rd to join us for the South Orange Newcomers Day. It was a beautiful event where we were able to share information from our school district from a parental perspective as well as an admin perspective with those who were interested in learning more about our school district. Thank you to the members of the South Orange trustees for inviting us to participate. And again, thank you to those board members who also came out to participate. So every year, both in the spring and the late fall, there is a statutory requirement that school districts in New Jersey present and share out to the public what's called an Ssds report. It was formerly known as the Violence and Vandalism Report. Dr. Perez, our Assistant Sup for Access and Equity, will be sharing this update with the community. She's doing it from her office virtually. Yeah. Just easier to control all these things that way. I think Mr. Bonds has gone back to the office just to double check the technical piece of that. Yep.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for that delay. As Dr. Taylor presented or explained, that we do the annual report of the Student Safety Data System. By law, all New Jersey public school districts must use the Ssds to report all incidents of violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse, and Hiv incidents that occur in the schools. The Ssds has replaced two previous systems that were originally used, one of them being Evers, what was formerly known as Evers, and the second being the Hiv Trainings and Program System. The district reports this information to both the board and the public twice a year, and the last report that any information was shared was on May 17th of this year. These are the terms that are provided within the SSD system, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Now, with regard to previous and current years, here is the data that we have. And if we look at the 2021 school year, which is the second to last column to the right, you'll notice that we didn't have many incidents reported. However, we still did have a number of alleged and confirmed Hiv. And this number is as of May 2021. Most of these incidents did take place virtually. With regard to our annual report of the Ssds, and looking at this particular slide, you'll notice that the incident totals that we have are 7 for all of our schools, 4 at the high school, 1 each at the middle schools, and then 1 at South Boyden. And then if you continue to move across the table, you'll notice where the other incidents occurred, whether they were HIV confirmed or HIV alleged. So what does the status show? While it continues to be apparent that COVID-19 and virtual instruction was the overall factor for why we didn't have a high number of incidents taking place last school year, the overall number of the incidents did not increase too much since it was last reported in May 2021. The only area that appears to have increased continues to be a serious concern, and that is what took place during virtual instruction. Social media continues to play a huge role, and our staff faced obstacles when it came to investigating, which included getting access to students since we were all virtual, having parental interference, as well as any other factors that were in place. In part of the training for the ABSs, the administration this year will work on creating best standards and protocols for obtaining student statements in order to ensure that the investigations move forward in a timely fashion. With regard to the decrease, in the past, the district provided training for our parents. However, this past year, participation in such outreach was low. Now that students have returned to full in-person instruction, the district is now working towards providing Hiv training for our families. Now, HIV training in previous years and current years. As with everything, on a positive note, being virtual did allow us to provide a lot more training than in previous years. Last year, all of the staff in all of the schools received training on the Hiv policy and the role that they play in reporting allegations of Hiv, as well as the need for them to be responsive to the ABS when Hiv allegations are investigated. Like I said, all of our staff were trained with this included, but was not limited to coaches, central office, custodians, paras, and a number of other departments. The overall effort was made to improve and change the culture and climate of our district in order to include lessons in our classrooms, particularly during the week of respect. PD training and training will remain the focus for the coming school year, both at the school and administrative level. Now, as we move on to the next slide, you will see the number of trainings and programs that were implemented during last school year. And as I stated in the previous slide, district-wide would mean anyone from paras to custodians, aides, bus drivers, central office staff. And you'll see that the table is divided into two. The report period 1 encompasses the months of September through January, and report period 2 encompasses the months from February to June. And where you see more than the number 1 cited, that is because some schools decided to do their own training in addition to what was already provided by the district, and this included school safety team meetings and trainings. With regard to this school year, the staff that we have already trained would be our new staff and the new ABS staff. The staff that we still have remains to be trained, but we are making schedules out and timelines for each different group is in the red box. Our goal this year is, because we are back in-person training, we're also looking at doing our trainings, recording our trainings, so that in the event any staff members are absent on the day that a training is being provided, they have access by way of their school to be able to view the Hiv training that was provided to the school on the date in which they were not available to attend. During the week of October 4th through the 8th, all of our schools participated in the Week of Respect. This, of course, is due to the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, which requires that the week beginning with the first Monday in October of each year be designated the Week of Respect across all schools in New Jersey. And with regard to our school district, many of our schools either did newsletter messages and videos to families, they had school spirit / school color days, chalk it up to respect kindness messages on social media, and a number of other items as you see there listed. The next few slides that you'll see, starting with Columbia High School, provide an outline of what each school did. This is Columbia High School's Week of Respect. Maplewood Middle School also had theirs cited in this manner. South Orange Middle School. Clinton Elementary School communicated their Week of Respect through their newsletter. Here is Jefferson Elementary and Marshall Elementary School. And last, Montrose Early Childhood Center did also participate, as we want to be sure that our little ones understand the importance of respect and we can start developing that culture and climate among our young children as early as possible. And finally, here is Seth Boyden's Week of Respect. South Mountains. And here's their pledge right here, the promise. And to round it all out would be Tuscan Elementary School. I'm now going to be looking at the expectations for this school year. Now, with regard to transitioning from hybrid instruction to in-person instruction, our focus remains the same as was last reported in May, and that is to continue to train all of our staff and administrators on the Code of Conduct implementation, the importance of HIV reporting and investigation, and data reporting, And all of this is including a full day of professional development with Legal One. And this particular training will encompass both our administrators and our ABSs. Legal One will focus on the role of the administrator as well as the ABS when it comes to matters involving HIV. There will also be practical steps on creating best standards and protocols to conduct investigations, including getting access to students and relevant evidence, and ensuring that we are meeting our statutory obligation as a school district to fulfill requirements in a timely manner. The district will continue to use HIPSTER to document the reports of any violations, be it HIB or the code of conduct. As often, these are initially reported as possible HIBs. Although HIPSTER can be used to track an investigation, such incidents need to be accurately and clearly reflected in HIPSTER and, when applicable, in PowerSchool, after which time administrators and support staff are responsible for correctly inputting incidents in Ssds. This year, as I mentioned previously, our trainings will focus on writing clear and detailed reports, as well as putting these reports into Ssds, which will be addressed 2 slides from now. With regard to our expectations again in our next steps, HIB complaints continue to be a challenge, particularly because there's a lot of it taking place on social media. Already this year, there has been an increase in a number of incidents that involve HIB, vandalism, and other incidents leading to students' removal, such as fights and conflicts between students. This is an area around culture and climate that needs to be strengthened through our programs and education. In the past, the district has had many school-specific programs to engage our students in discussions about HIB, acceptance, and equity, which have usually been sponsored by a parenting center and PTAs. These programs were, of course, limited last year because we were all virtual, and so our goal this year is to ensure that we start scheduling these so that we can begin to address any areas where HIBs are a high concern. Thanks to the Parenting Center through the elementary school social work program, counseling services are being offered for our students at each of the elementary schools. Programs offer individual and small group counseling with a social work intern. The aim is to remove any barriers to success and to provide students with the social emotional support necessary for them to get the most out of their school experience. And focus topics will include the challenges that were brought on by COVID, as well as dealing with peer pressure and bullying. While we can all acknowledge that last year was an anomaly due to the small number of incidents that occurred overall, reporting this information continues to be a concern because we continue to not have all of our incidents reported. For example, while we have our fights inputted into Ssds, we may not have such incidents that would involve substance abuse or vandalism making its way into the Ssds system. To date, the Ssds system is not open to enter incidents, and as per the state, will open in November. Records indicate that there are a number of incidents that do need to be inputted into our Ssds reporting system. Appropriate staff, which include our administrators, have been sent reminders that incidents have already occurred, and these must be entered properly to ensure accuracy. Reminders will continue to be sent to staff to ensure that we do not continue to fall short of meeting this particular area. The district will carry out the positive trajectory by continuing PD, as mentioned earlier, and pushing out reminders as often as necessary. For this particular school year, the emphasis will continue to be on accuracy with overall reporting, transparency in reporting, and ensuring that all levels of reporting, investigating, and recommended remedial and or restorative measures be put in place for students are in fact consistent. Who and how to contact the district when it comes to concerns or questions. As required by the district policy 5512, the name, phone number, address, and email address of the district anti-bullying coordinator is listed on our homepage. The name, school phone number, and address or school email of both the anti-bullying specialist and the district anti-bullying coordinator is listed on the homepage of each school's website. And you can see it listed onto the right-hand side of the slide, as well as any important documents and policies that are below in the bulleted areas of the slide. And that is it for the Ssds presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. Just a couple of points before we take questions, and Dr. Perez did a great job of pointing out on your last slide. The term ABS is, of course, means anti-bullying specialist. There's one person at each school who's taken on that role, who goes through consistent trainings via our office on how to intake HIV occurrences or alleged occurrences, and how to investigate them, and the applicable timelines and the hipster software that we use to ensure that we meet those timelines. Additionally, Dr. Perez did a great job of pointing out how virtual learning and virtual opportunities due to COVID-19 added many more training opportunities to HIB and the Ssds requirements. That also had a similar effect on the parental attendance in like math nights, back to school nights. There was an expansion for those folks who had other obligations at home. So we want to continue to utilize this format even as I always say, exit COVID. Additionally, there was a previous concern with our Ssds presentation last spring that we brought to the board where there was the concern around the self-evaluation that our schools do. And one of the concerns there was how schools view the available trainings. So we have, again, escalated those opportunities for our schools, as I hope you saw from that information. Just an example of our Week of Respect, when I went to visit one of our schools, I was surprised and confused that everyone had their clothes on backwards, right? Even the school leaders, the teachers, everyone, right? So there's lots of things that are a part of that and a part of getting our kids to really see see the importance of this information. Last but not least, Dr. Perez mentioned that we expect these numbers to unfortunately look much different during our next presentation. We have shared with our community and our families the TikTok challenge right around vandalism. This is where that information will be reported. We've shared with our board our concerns around the increasing of student conflict and HIB reporting, and that we know that right now as a district, as a community, as a nation, we're coming back to in-person, and there are challenges. People have been home, students have been home, students are people too, right? We're coming back together and relearning how the societal norms work and how we can all be in the same space and still be respectful of one another. So we're taking additional steps with those trainings. And last but not least, we're going to shift to just a very brief update on our district goals and the district goal action plans. For those who were in attendance at our last board meeting and our previous year's board meetings, you know that the board sets the district goals in consultation with me, the superintendent, and we utilize those district goals to drive the work of not just my office, but administrators throughout our school district. And once those district goals are accepted, the different departmental leaders who are attached to those different goals, we work together to develop action plans. And these, yep, please, yeah, these action plans are live documents. They don't, they aren't static. Please.
Right. No, before we actually get to that presentation, I just wanted to
questions.
Walk through questions on the on Dr. Perez's presentation before we get into that. So, are there questions on the SSDS report? Board Member Malaspina.
I think Dr. Perez or whoever, I don't even know where Dr. Perez went, she's disappeared. We saw that the need, that their social media is playing a large role in some of the Hiv violations we're seeing in others. Is there a plan of action to do more digital citizenship training or training associated with that on how to be good citizens online and social media? Because it has been a thread that we keep seeing over and over again. So I'm wondering if you could address that a little.
That's a great question, and I know that part of part of our CNI conversations last spring, we're talking about that as part of our investment for this year. And so we are aware, and I know that Dr. Friedman and his team are preparing that for our students in our school community. Any updates on that, Dr. Friedman, please?
There you go.
Is that you? Oh, that's good. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to partner with Common Sense Media, who is really one of the leaders in digital citizenship, in my opinion. And there's other resources as well, but they have a pretty robust program that I've worked with in the past, and we have talked about internally in CNI. But we're going to explore that and other resources to really talk about how to be safe and mindful in a digital space for both staff and students and families as well.
Thank you. I guess we'll discuss this more in CNI.
Right.
Is that, okay.
Thanks.
Thank you
Board
so
Member
much.
Ospina.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions? Okay, Board Member Bergen and then Board Member Cottle.
Thank you. I had a question about the 10-year comparison in the SDS chart, and something you said made me focus on, there's a row for vandalism, but is everything not necessarily tied to a particular student? And the follow-up is, there might be 84 instances of substance use in 1 year, but that's not 84 students. Can we get a sense of
Sure.
how that all works?
That's a perfect question. So one incident that I'm involved in could tick multiple categories, right? I could be painting on the wall and also be intoxicated and then tussle with the individual who finds me, right? That might be 3 different incidents within those different categories. That is correct. And one important piece that I think Dr. Perez pointed out is that the definitions have been fluid throughout that span of 10 years or so, and the tools that we've utilized to capture them have also been fluid.
Thank you, President Joshua. Thank you, Dr. Perez, for your report out. Thank you, Dr. Perez, for your report out on the report. This is something that I look to our district that I've been following since before my time on the board and following the report and the trajectory of our students. And I will have to say that with this report, there seems to be more of a clear definition and timeline of professional development for all staff, which previously, in my experience and my understanding, has not been as, the availability to be as robust and has not, as a district, we haven't made that commitment. And so seeing that now, over the last couple of years, get to this point is great, because that ensures that when we have staff that are trained at all levels, not just for prevention and intervention, but at the same time, it's not just about making sure that folks know how to report and use Hipster. It's not just about the numbers, right, and making the reports and the mandate. It's about making sure that all of our staff at all levels have the tools at their disposal to be able to help students that might be in crisis or potentially facing a Hib or conflict resolution, right, at all grade levels, because that builds into the overall climate and culture of our district. One question I did have, if I may, would be, I know that we've had challenges with Hipster and with the parameters of reporting, pulling reports, ensuring folks update and use the system. And I know in the past that we've, as a board, since my time on the board, we've started having conversations about potentially looking to something else besides Hipster. I don't know if that's currently something we're considering as we're moving forward in this process. I know that there's a lot of tools available, but Hipster has served us, but maybe hasn't served us as well as we would like as a platform for us for recording. So that was one question. And then in regards to the reporting on the other, similar to Board Member Bergen's point, with the categories that Dr. Taylor's explained, thank you, is that, are we going to be seeing anything that's still backlogged or anything that didn't get finished, investigated, or uploaded in the system? Or is this report now considered complete? Because I know that perhaps that there was some potential, as mentioned in your report, some outstanding items that perhaps with administrators and such who have not been, updated everything still from perhaps when we were virtual.
I can help a little bit while Dr. Come on up. Yeah, you're the next contestant, right? I can just answer the first question, Board Member Cuddle, and board members, that we have received information around competitors to Hipster that have advantages, and we're reviewing that. We also know that whenever you shift platforms, there's a lag in everyone now learning this new platform. And is the improvement worth the investment? Is the improvement worth the transition? That's what we're reviewing. Dr. Perez, the second question, please. Yep.
Keith, naturally.
So with regard to the second question, I wouldn't say right now, we want to make sure that we're looking through all the reports, and so I would feel more comfortable doing a span of what has been reported before I say, nope, we're final, because like you said, there's times where we're looking at something at first glance, I wouldn't say first glance, but first read, that we may not pick up right away, but in second read, we say, oh, wait a minute, what about this and what about that? So we'd rather do like a clean read of everything. I like to use the magic number 3, and that way we can then finally say with confidence, yep, this is all ready to go. We're confident with what has been reported and how it's been reported and how the findings came about.
And just to follow up, Dr. Perez, when is it going to be sent to the state, the report?
I can hear you.
When is the report going to be sent to the state?
When is that usually?
Yeah, it's gone. Yep.
Oh, that. So what was she asking about, the hips? Okay.
Go ahead, Board Member Manning.
So my understanding was in previous years, sometimes there was a discrepancy because individual schools self-reported into SDS or this SSDS system. So are we saying that we did it at a district level, or was?
The SSDS?
Yeah.
We think we had to go back and monitor. We had to go back and look to see what was, based on whatever we received on Hipster, what was inputted and what was not inputted.
Okay.
And whatever wasn't inputted, we had to then go back and follow
Okay.
up.
All right, thank you.
I misunderstood your question. I thought you were talking about the HIB that we were talking about in the executive session. I apologize for that.
All right, Dr. Taylor, that's your action plans.
Sure thing. No other questions, correct? Thank you, Dr. Perez. Great job, thank you. Can't hardly see it that well. Okay. Yeah, it's there. We just have some art, some beautiful art there too as well. So I will keep my seat just so I can see everything on our screen here. Number. Let's see, having a little bit of tech. Keith, the art might be blocking the signal. I can just do it from here if you like. Maybe low on the signal. Perfect, thank you. So as we stated before, our SLT members, the cabinet members, work together. Because many times these district goals encompass multiple departments, and sometimes they are a singular department. For example, the first district goal, which really focuses in on our dynamic facilities construction that's happening right now. I won't bore you by reading the different goals and all of the applicable steps and the timelines, et cetera. But I think we've been very transparent on our website and also pushing out to the board a bi-weekly update of what's occurring at each of our construction sites, and also planning for the future, right? We often receive questions around how long are we going to be having our construction at certain sites. And as you can see from the action plan here, we are speaking to both our current projects as well as the future projects, especially with the secondary school lens. Just leaving it there for a moment. As you can see, I hope that there are many folks who contribute to this work. These are huge projects, and they are dynamic. We have construction managers as well as bond counsel and our business administrator and our assistant business administrator and many others who support this work. The next goal speaks to teaching and learning student achievement, which of course is a tenet of this work that we do as district leaders. Again, I won't read the entire district goal to you, but you can see that there's a focus here on culturally responsive, sustaining education. Our C&I team worked with other members of our SLT and created this first draft of our district goal action plan. And again, the board has received copies of these drafts that we'll continue to update and speak about in our committee meetings. One important piece to point out here is that these goals do become the goals or partial goals of other administrators in our school district, whether they be members of our district admin team or our cabinet, or even our principals and assistant principals and academic supervisors. A lot of this goal focuses in on a shared understanding and shared definition of what does CRSE mean here in our district. And it's a very important piece that we're going to involve students, teachers, building admin, and district admin and families in. One highlight, still within the same goal, is our partnership with Equal Opportunity Schools. We have begun this partnership. We've met with them multiple times as a leadership team, and also as part of Columbia High School's team has also been a part of those meetings, and teachers have had their first introduction to Equal Opportunity Schools as we continue to do the work to ensure that we have a true equitable access to all of our coursework. The next action plan focuses in on staff recruitment, retention, and development. In this draft action plan, you can see that we're speaking about all parts of our district family here and looking at POCs and how they are implemented in our school district, and also involving not just, again, central administrators, but all members of our district admin team. This also includes work that we found to be successful in other places, book studies. Sometimes as leaders, we don't take the time to develop ourselves. Additionally, we're going to continue the work that we did last school year around developing an Aspiring Administrators Academy. We think that for some of our younger, less seasoned employees, they're looking for opportunities in the future to kind of spell out where they'll be sitting in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. And we want to continue to offer growth opportunities for them. And so we'll continue that partnership with Kane University. We are moving into year 2 of our intentional integration program. We are excited for the almost 600 kindergartners who have successfully integrated their grade level here in our school district. It was a historical first pilot year, and now we're going to be learning from this pilot. We discussed many areas that we can improve what we're doing to continue this for the next group of kindergartners and possibly for the rising sixth graders. This includes reviewing our data, continuing to ensure that we are having equitable processes and reviewing what's happening in those kindergarten classrooms and in those elementary schools with regard to this integration work. These are not just numbers on paper. These are students and people who are in our buildings. And we want to make sure that our professional development that the board has supported us with through outside partners is really focused in on anti-bias, anti-racist PD, being not afraid to take on such an important topic. We're also still, of course, working together. There are many, many members of our team who are a part of the intentional integration work. It's more than just an algorithm. It's looking deep into that information, looking deep into that data, creating the timely communication to families, managing our microsite, dealing with and talking with constantly our consultant who is, nationally renowned for this work, but we have to continue to manage that data. Even when we get 2 or 3 kindergarten families who just enroll, we want to be as timely in responding to them with their placements as we can while we're still managing this school year and planning for next school year. And so, let's see here, am I going? There we go. Last but not least, certainly not least, probably one of the most comprehensive action plans really attacks the access and equity question and how we rethink and reshape our processes. In this particular goal, the area of focus is our registrar and the registration department and how we are bringing kids in and bringing families in and re-examining that through an equity lens and maybe even rethinking how that's occurring. The board is considering one part of that this evening with procurement of a tool called Clear that helps us to remove bias from any possible bias, not to say that anyone is specifically biased, but any implicit bias that any of us could have who are involved with not only students when they enter our school district and where they're placed, but also how do we continue to verify if a question comes about with their residency? And so this is part of that goal, what the board is adopting or considering this evening. And also looking at just our processes that have been in place for a significant number of years and looking at them from the ground level. You can see some of that information in folks who are involved there, and there are many. There are many many pieces of our district that are a part of how students enter our district and how they remain in our district. And what we hope to glean from this action plan and this district goal is a process that can be applied to other departmental pieces of our school district to improve in making sure that we, again, are not just equitable, but that we are transparent. And that is just, again, sharing these first drafts of our action plans to be further discussed in our committee meetings, and our board members are also free to give us their feedback of our action plans. We know from our training with the New Jersey school boards that the action plans is really an administrative tool for us to move the work forward so that the board can continue to assess our success. But in the name of partnership, we always will review feedback from the board and take it very seriously. That concludes that review of our action plans.
Thank you for that, Dr. Taylor. Any questions? All right, Board Member Wingfield and then Manny.
Thank you for the presentation. And it was helpful to see the way that you and your team have chunked out the goals to really think about almost sub-goals within the larger goals. I think that was really helpful. One of the things, not from a content perspective, but more process that would be really helpful perhaps through the committees is just to sort of see a bit of a finer grain size around how you and the team are thinking about monitoring progress, perhaps in cycles. So thinking about, as opposed to just a broad October to June activity time period, what would an indicator of progress look like in January versus March versus June? Just to give us a sense as to sort of how you are all thinking about the benchmarks towards the larger goal.
Thank you for that. And that's kind of that project management lens, right? And I think one thing that I've learned in the last couple of years is that our retreats are a great space for that. And when we have our retreats and I'm able to give really specific updates on these goals, and some of the goals within them have some specificity with them, we definitely will take that into consideration as we're moving forward. Thank you for that feedback. I know the board president had to step away, but I could take any other questions.
He said that I could go ahead. So,
Yes.
Dr. Taylor, just a content question. Can we go back to the integration goal? So, I didn't see any work being done on what we're going to do for middle school, and I thought we had committed to that. Or maybe I missed it.
No, yes, you are correct. And again, this is an early draft, and I'm sure you can imagine some of the other priorities that we've had recently, but that still remains a priority in this work. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Our team's listening out there. They want to hear the feedback, so feel free to share, or you can also email, or we can talk about it in our committee meetings. We'll be happy to go back and forth. So thank you so much for that rich feedback. And what you see in your committee meeting will even look different from what you see here. That's what this is moving towards. Yes?
I just want to clarify that I assume because part of these, I am recused from some of these. So I don't want anyone to think that I am not discussing it because.
That's probably Ms. Butler to make that determination, but yeah, I know the one you couldn't vote on, you can't discuss, right? But
right, so I just want it to be made clear that I purposely have not said anything or discussed anything because, or thought about anything related to it because I have recused from.
All right, thank you. Dr. Taylor, I had one very, it might be just a yes or no question. I know we will be having a special meeting, which we'll talk at the end of the meeting about the South Mountain and the annex construction. Is there going to be a separate, are we bringing on another facilities manager for that project, or are we going to be using one of the existing two for the plans that are already ongoing?
Thanks for asking. We're gonna use the same one, the same construction manager that we have now. Epic, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
So just one last comment, board members, just to point out to the public, 4207K, that resolution is the result of a lot of work with the partnership with Walmart, bringing in funds to help families who have experienced crisis in our district. You might recall last year we had a tragic fire in our community, and the Parenting Center just does wonderful work to support families who are in crisis, and so we had the opportunity to secure a significant contribution to them, just dialed in for the need to support families who are experiencing a crisis circumstance. So I want to just acknowledge the work of those involved, and thank you to the corporate partnership.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. We'll now move on to the President's report. All right, good evening, everybody. I was pleased to be invited to participate in Njsba's strategic planning sessions earlier this month. Sessions took place on October 2nd and October 16th. The plan will cover the 2022 through 2024 years and will include the following five focus areas: impacting opportunities for student growth, Njsba services for tomorrow's world, partnering and public education advocacy, professional learning for effective governance, and future innovations in advancements in technology. There were about 40 or so board members who participated, and they're all throughout the state. So I was very pleased to be a part of that process, and you'll be seeing the results of that work soon. Speaking of Njsba, this year's annual conference, which will be held as a virtual workshop, will be October 26th to October 28th. All board members have registered to attend. One will be presenting, as we heard earlier, and there are plenty of exciting and relevant panels taking place during the conference. There are lots of interesting topics, lots of interesting speakers, including a keynote address from the Acting Commissioner of Education and former SMSD Principal, Dr. Njsba McMillan. I look forward to sharing stories with my colleagues about best practices and other insights gained from the panels. Thank you again to the district for the continuing partnership with MediMobile to make free COVID testing readily available every Saturday, now with extended hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the gymnasium parking lot at Columbia High School. Anyone who lives or works in Soma is eligible to get tested, and the board strongly encourages district families to take advantage of the testing program. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, and the task force that you assembled for providing the board with recommendations for combating sexual assault in the district. The board received the report last month, and we will be following up with questions in the next couple of weeks. And lastly, I want to take a moment to address the recent allegations of bias-based misconduct at South Borden earlier this month. While I cannot comment directly on the specific allegations, which are currently under investigation, I want to speak to the commitments of this board and the district at this time. As a school district, it is our collective responsibility to uphold the core principles that speak to creating inclusive and empowering school communities. It is essential that we not only uphold these principles through words, but match these words with deep reflection, if necessary, revision, and most importantly, with action. We will continue to work with the superintendent to ensure that necessary supports are in place and ensure all staff are held accountable for creating nurturing, supportive environments where all our students can thrive. We will also work with the superintendent along with local leadership, community, and faith-based partners to help us meet this moment with meaningful opportunities to engage in discussion and healing as we move forward. Islamophobia nor anti-Semitism have any place in that discussion. Most importantly, let us not forget the responsibility we have to support a child who's at the center of this situation. A child who, regardless of the outcome of this investigation, will no doubt need time, support, and resources to heal and feel safe in the classroom. We will continue to urge the district to maintain focus on the well-being of students, classmates, and work to ensure that social and emotional well-being of every child is centered as an essential and foundational condition to academic success. I'll now turn it over to Noah Morris for the student representative report.
Thank you. Students and their families from around the district truly appreciate the hard work that teachers go through every day. Both the school board and teachers undoubtedly want what's best for students, but right now, that's not what's happening. The work to rule labor action that is occurring due to a breakdown in union negotiations between our board and the teachers union has resulted in letters of recommendation not being written, some after-school clubs not being able to meet, and students being unable to receive extra help after school hours. This disruption is disadvantaging those that both the school board and teachers care about the most, the students. It is every student's hope that the two parties can soon come to an agreement that benefits all parties. On another topic, Vanessa and I recently got the opportunity to meet with Dr. Taylor. We mainly discussed students with accommodations, as some students are not having their accommodations recognized. Dr. Taylor assured us that this was unacceptable and would be met with swift action, as well as outlining methods for students to report these occurrences anonymously. We also discussed the implementation of education about online gambling and investing into middle school health programs. This is in order to avoid the highly addictive and absorbing effect that can take place, along with the possibility of losing thousands of dollars. Dr. Taylor also informed us the district did have the finances to proceed with our zero-cost SAT and ACT tutoring initiative, which is moving forward quickly, and we hope to begin trials of the program in coming months in partnership with the Achieve Foundation. Students are excited that our well-deserved November break is coming soon, as well as the School Spirit Week that leads up to it. I've had the opportunity to attend weekly student council meetings throughout this year, and so far I'm excited to say that things are going very well. The Columbia High School Student Council is hosting our annual blood drive on Friday, October 22nd, and we'll be serving staff and students all day. So if any students or staff members are watching, go sign up. Vanessa and I also got the opportunity to meet with Principal Sanchez of Columbia High School. We discussed the advancement of the SAT and ACT tutoring initiative, discussing logistics and the possibility of having student tutors. We also spoke about different scheduling measures in order to avoid crowding in hallways and staircases, as well as school renovations, such as the revamped use of the pool space at Columbia and renovation of the library. It's safe to say that there's a lot to look forward to at Columbia High School in the future. And finally, in regards to what's going on at Seth Boyden, I want to tell all the students I represent, community as a whole, that we are all in this together across cultures, races, economic backgrounds, religion, orientation, or identity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are now at the time for hearings of individuals and delegations, also known as public speaks. This is an opportunity for you to share your concerns about an item on the agenda, but it's not time for dialogue with the board. The board requests that you state your name and the town of your residence for the record. We will set the time limit to 2 minutes for each speaker, and we ask that you respect that time limit. We must cut you off so it does not appear as if we are giving advantage to anyone to share their views over another individual. Speakers have the full protection of free speech during public speaks. However, this forum does not protect you from the subject of your free speech pursuing liable slander charges. Finally, the board recommends that all members of our community pursue the chain of command. All right, Mr. Burnside, do we have any in-person public speaks? Okay. All right, our first public speaks is from Deb Di Gregorio. Well, no, we had somebody a couple months ago. This is the first of the school year. Yeah, sure.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. You have 2 minutes.
I'm Deb Gregorio, and I am representing the Kensington area neighborhood this evening. There would have been a lot more of us here, except we understood that there was a limit of 25 people. And when I say Kensington area, we've been around for a good couple of decades as a group. I mean, North Terrace, Academy, Crowell, and Edgewood, the streets surrounding here. I've been a resident of Kensington Terrace since 1998. We've always considered Columbia High School our neighbor with 2,000 relatives who come to visit every day. We expect nothing more of the high school than what we expect of ourselves in terms of being a neighbor. That said, we had been seeing a lot of illegal parking on Kensington Terrace. When we confronted the students, we were laughed at and told that they had permission from the school to park illegally on Kensington and North Terrace. In fact, the police department was forgiving their tickets. And this is just outrageous for many, many reasons. We were not consulted. The neighborhood was not consulted when this decision was made. We went today to the principal, and we understand that that there are potholes where the buses are usually parked, so they're now parked in the student lot, okay? And the students have no place to park. And they've been given permission to essentially break the law in our neighborhood. Now, you wouldn't want a neighbor doing that, and we would like Columbia High School not to be doing that. So we would like the potholes to be filled and the buses to be parked where they need to be parked so the students are back in their parking lot. And I would add that in this neighborhood, this community that is highly walkable, parking your car, bringing your car to school is a privilege, not a right, okay? Now, the reason why we're bringing this up, it's a safety issue. On a good day, we have extraordinary issues.
Thank you for your time. 2 minutes are up. Yes, thank you.
I will say this, we'd like the parking to solve.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. I cannot give you the opportunity to speak longer than other residents. Thank you for your time. Our next in-person public speaks is Joe Strupp. Our next public speaks is Joe Strupp from Maplewood. Thank you. Thank you. You have 2 minutes. That's not on. It's not on.
Oh, there you
Now
go.
it's on. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joe Strupp. Some of you may know me from my former website, maplewoodian.com, which covered the township for 8 years, from 2010 to 2018. I am currently a reporter at the Asbury Park Press and the parent of a Columbia High School 12th grader, as well as a 2019 graduate of Columbia High School. I'm also the author of a new book, A Long Walk Home, about the unsolved murder of Carol Ann Farino. Carol was a 17-year-old Columbia High School student in 1966 when she was murdered while on her way home from an evening job at a diner in Maplewood Village. Since her killing on November 3rd of that year, police have found no suspects and consider the case still to be unsolved, as does the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. From my research, I found many former friends of Carol, as well as her sister Cynthia, a 1972 graduate of Columbia High School, to offer me insight. Sadly, there is no tribute to her at the high school in the form of any plaque, memento, or other way to honor her memory, her time at the school, and her sad demise. I believe she is the only Columbia High School student who was killed in town during their time as a student, other than the unfortunate Ngsba Fofana, the wonderful Columbia High School student and soccer standout, who was, of course, tragically killed just a few months ago. Thanks to great police work, his alleged killer was found and is facing likely prosecution. There has been talk that something should be done to honor Ngsba's memory, with which I heartily agree. But I also believe that Carol Ann Farino deserves the same recognition and would hope the school district will look into something to honor her. In the meantime, I'll give you a copy of the book to share with you, and I would be glad to help in any way. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our in-person public speaks. We'll now move on to the audio comment portion. And our first audio comment is from Pete Paschal of Maplewood.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 2 minutes.
Awesome. All right, I'll talk fast. I'm Pete Paschal. I'm a Maplewood parent, and tonight I have the privilege to speak for SOMA for a Safe Return to School. It's a group with more than 800 members that prioritizes keeping kids in school during the ongoing pandemic, while also keeping them safe. We're here today to ask the district to consider a test-to-stay policy for unvaccinated students who have been exposed to COVID-19 at school or within their community. This policy would allow students to stay in school as long as they have no symptoms and perform daily testing, typically for 7 days. The goal is to isolate and quarantine only the students that need to, that is, those infected with COVID, allowing healthy children to continue learning in the best environment with the least disruption, the classroom. Since the beginning of the school year, test-to-stay is becoming more popular in schools across the country. After the New York Times covered it in September, schools in Kentucky, Georgia, and Rhode Island have implemented the policy, and that's in addition to Illinois, Utah, Kansas, California, and Massachusetts, all of which already have versions of test-to-stay in place. We think test-to-stay will be an effective way to reduce the disruption caused by quarantines of healthy children. A recent study by a major medical journal revealed 98% of students who quarantine are uninfected. A key area where test-to-stay would be beneficial to keeping healthy children in school is in regards to the current travel quarantine policy. The current policy requires quarantine even without any known exposure, simply for travel outside an arbitrary geographical region. There are several neighboring districts who don't have this policy in place and are not experiencing school spread as a result. As we approach the November fall break and upcoming holiday season, families will have to make difficult decisions based on this one-size-fits-all policy. A test to stay policy would greatly minimize the disruption that any quarantines from travel might create. But even without such a policy, we believe the travel quarantine should be re-examined, especially since COVID infections in Essex County are down 63% in the last month alone.
Thank you. Our next audio public speaks is from Meg Berry. Ms. Bonds, do we have Meg Berry? We do not? All right, we'll move on. Our next audio public speaks is from Henry Satone of South Orange.
Hi, this is Henry Satone from South Orange. I want to address two issues. One is surveillance testing in the schools like Montclair and New York City are doing. We absolutely need to know where we have a problem if we have one. I mean, there's studies out from JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, that show that symptomatic screening, which is what we're doing, does not work. We do not know if we have asymptomatic kids in the schools. We don't know what classroom they're in. You can pool the test results so that you know for very little money, and the CDC recommends this, you will know which school or which classroom, if you want to do classroom pooling, is an area where you may potentially have a kid with COVID that's virus positive, and that's you catch it early, and then you get rid of it by quarantining that student. You do not punish all the other students or wait until symptoms show up, and then you have a huge number of kids that are positive. So that's my 2 cents on that. You know, I have a degree in microbiology, so I know wherever I speak. I want to touch on another issue, which is the Seth Boyden issue. You know, I personally, and I've talked to a lot of Jewish people in town, this is not an issue with the staff. It's not an issue with the students. It's really a parental issue and an internet issue. You know, people jump to conclusions online. There was a gross amount of anti-Semitism in the district and it's coming from the adults, not from the kids. You know, so when we send out a thing for the parents to read about racism and stuff like that, we need to be holistic. We can't just do it at the board meeting. We absolutely have to send it in the email, a link both to Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, because within a day of this incident, it was Jew, Jew, Jew all over the internet constantly. So we absolutely need to reinforce to the parents, don't turn your kids into racists. Just because an incident happens and the person that allegedly committed the incident is a member of a community, that does not mean you get to blame the entire community or blame or ascribe a motivation to that individual. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public speaks is from Laura Booker. Okay, no Laura Booker. All right, move on. Our next audio public speaks is from Malia Herman of Maplewood. I see you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you, Malia. We'll try one more time, Malia. Otherwise, we'll come back. We'll go to the written ones and then come back. Okay, we'll let Malia Herman work that out. We'll now move on to the written public speaks. Okay. Our first written public speaks comes from Denise Gaffney of Maplewood. We live in Upper Wyoming and have been placed in Clinton without a bus. The time to travel in the morning, crossing both Valley and Prospect and navigating the Columbia High School start time with the roads closed down is a 20-minute drive. This is too much. We need a bus. Please considering offering buses for families who are this far away. And that was from Denise Gaffney of Maplewood. Our next public speaks is from Christy Kinahan of Maplewood. I would like to inquire about having the option for courtesy or paid busing for families that don't meet the 2-mile cutoff for transportation to school. My son currently is going to Marshall Elementary, and we missed the 2-mile cutoff, but are still 1.97 miles away from school and would like some alternative when driving is not an option. That was Christy Kinahan of Maplewood. Excuse me. Stop the clock for a second. Computer's a little buggy right now. Right. All right. Oh, so just bear with me 1 second, folks. Computer froze. Oh, you know what? I can do this. Got it. Okay. What's going on here? Yeah. All right. Oh, gosh. Oh. It's district property.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so we are here. Okay. Our next written public speaks is from Megan Mortensen of Maplewood. Would the board consider courtesy or paid busing for families who were taken out of their neighborhood schools as a result of intentional integration? I've been told we are not a, quote, busing town, unquote. However, if my child is no longer to attend his neighborhood school, it follows that he should then be provided transportation to the school he is designated to. And that was Megan Mortensen from Maplewood. Our next public speaks is James Nathanson of Maplewood. Is this thing working? My whole computer is just not cooperating. Gosh. Okay. Sorry. Mine is, this is the other one. Yeah, no. All right, I'll just let me get going. Okay. Again, this is James Nathanson of Maplewood. Renaming of Jefferson School. Wait, I need a timer. This one looks long. Give myself a timer here. Pause. I got it. I got it. Okay, here we go. This is not merely about elementary students renaming a school. It is a much broader issue for our community. While I'm aware that the request to change the name came to the BOE a year ago, I understand that it was recently pushed through without any discussion. This is too important a decision to drive through so quickly. While the decision to rename Jefferson School should not have been taken by such a quick vote by the board, it should require community discussion and perhaps a community referendum. It seems the board is intent on moving forward. My discussions with friends and neighbors reveal that many in Selma are still unaware that this is happening. This is moving way too quickly. I am not opposed to renaming the school, but as a very long-time active member of our community, I expect a more thoughtful and thorough process with more exploration, discussion, and planning, along with openness and transparency. I have lived in Maplewood since 1983, for 38 years, indeed longer than many of you on the board. I raised 3 children through our school system, including Jefferson School. As such, my observations, those of Jim Nathanson, and others with deep community roots are valuable to the community. We are those who have seen the positive growth and transitions of these towns over the decades into the vibrant, diverse, and wonderful places that they are. We value the Marshall Jefferson busing, have celebrated our increasing diversity, and endeavored to instill in our children the values we cherish that are so important to us locally, as well as in a multicultural, globally connected world. We also understand that there is more work to be done. The decision needs to be considered and studied in the context of curriculum, as well as considering what education means in our towns. Is there a town-wide plan for this type of problem moving forward? Do you have an overall concept for these issues? Or is it just to be done in isolation as a one and done? I can see a more overall plan to reconsider naming other buildings, places, and entities in our towns. Do we rename Jefferson Avenue? Do we rename Rickleton Square? Or revered, yes, he too was considered racist. Do we rename Columbia High School? How do we define the process? I'll finish this sentence. How do we, stop. I'll finish this sentence. How do we, where did that sentence go? Here it is. How do we define this process, and what is the extent and or limit to this? There's more, but again, we've reached the time limit. So that, again, was Jim Nathanson of Maplewood. Our next public speaks is from Abigail Scher of Maplewood. When can we get a replacement teacher for second graders in South Boynton, and what is being done to help those kids? That is Abby Scher of Maplewood. Our next public speaks is Mike Ehrman from Maplewood. I'm a parent of 2 children at Tuscan Elementary in kindergarten and second grade. As you may be aware, students at Tuscan are not allowed to play with children outside of their class at recess. Parents have been informed that this is in keeping with district rules. However, I am aware that most schools in the district are allowing children to play with kids from outside their class during recess, which leads to the question, why are public health standards being applied unevenly within the district? I personally think that outdoor play, particularly masked outdoor play, has generally been shown to be a low-risk activity and should not constitute close contact. But it defies logic that the standards should be applied unevenly and arbitrarily within their district. Either kids should be allowed to play with kids outside of their classes, or they shouldn't. This strikes me as a real failure of leadership on a district level, and one that has forced important administrators and staff, our principals, nurses, and teachers, scrambling to decide on public health policy, rather than focusing on the education, health, and safety of our kids. Does the board believe these standards should be applied unevenly? As far as I know, only Jefferson and Tuscan are making students follow this rule. And that was Mike Ehrman of Maplewood. Our next public speaks is from Laura Booker of Maplewood. I think you had her already. Yeah, but she didn't show up, so I think this is it. This is the real one. Good evening. My name is Laura Booker, and I'm the current president of the MMS HSA. The elevator at MMS has not worked for weeks, meaning that students with physical disabilities and mobility issues are left without a viable option to get to the second floor. It's a violation of the most basic ADA standards and accommodations that our students are entitled to, and a slap in the face to our students with disabilities. It also means our custodians, who are entrusted with the difficult task of cleaning our school each day up to COVID standards, have to carry all their equipment, supplies, and the massive amount of garbage up and down the stairs. Our parent community is requesting that the elevator be fixed immediately, as a working elevator is not only required by law, but is a humane response to making sure that middle schoolers with mobility issues can access their classrooms without undue stress and physical exertion. We appreciate your immediate attention to this issue. Again, that was Laura Booker of Maplewood. Our next public speaks is Lena Stapleton of Maplewood. I am pleased that the district has announced the decision to place air purifiers in each classroom. As this has been promised in the past and taken back, I would like reassurance that it will actually happen this time. Please announce the date by which all, what's going on? I can't read the rest of it. Hold on. Which all, hold on. Because this is not. Okay, please announce the date by which all classes will have received their units. Additionally, please make it clear that and how you will monitor air quality, enforce open doors and windows, as well as outdoor dining. Parents want to trust the words coming from the BOE and leadership, but need to see action. Okay, that was Lena Stapleton from Maplewood. All right, and so now I'm gonna go back to the audio public speaks. So we have 2 there. Yep, so one is Graham Bavitz from Maplewood. Yep, and there's Malia, so I can do that one.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 2 minutes.
Great. My name is Graham Bavitz. I live in Maplewood. My daughter is a 4th grader at Jefferson and is supposed to receive EBR, that's evidence-based reading, every day as part of her IEP. Since March 2020, the school district has skipped this countless times, resulting in her level barely improving since then. This year, we were eager to get back to in-person learning so she could get back on track with EBR. But as you may know, we're now in our 6th week of school and EBR still hasn't started at Jefferson. Apparently, the school doesn't have EBR teachers this year because they've been reassigned to the classroom. When we heard this, we were told to reach out to Ms. Tomini for questions. So we did, and it's incredibly difficult to get a response there. It took over a week and us sending the same email 3 times before we could get a response that just said, there's no plan yet, but it's being worked on and it would be shared once it was available. We responded to that message 2 times in the last week and have not gotten a response to our follow-up questions. No one from the district nor the school have reached out to us to proactively explain the situation. There are probably actually children who are impacted by this whose parents don't even know that their kids are not receiving these required services. This is unacceptable. The board, the administration, and the district, you're all failing the most vulnerable children here. We're not asking for anyone to go above and beyond. We're not asking for anything outrageous. We just want the children to receive the services they need, the services that are required by law. And we want you to communicate with parents along the way. So I asked the board and I asked the superintendent to help me understand how we can possibly be 6 weeks into the school year and still not have a plan here. And how can we be 6 weeks into the school year, not have a plan, and no one has thought to reach out to their parents to explain what's going on? I want to understand, why is it so difficult to communicate with the administration and get responses back? And I want to understand, what is the path forward? How do we get kids started in the EBR that is required under law? And how do we make up every single session that has been missed so far? Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to Malia Herman, I just want to correct the record. I incorrectly said that public speaks was from James Nathanson. It was from Njsba, so I apologize for that. So now let's see if we can get Malia Herman back on. I guess on.
No, she's gone.
Okay, that concludes our first public speaks. Dr. Teller, you wish to respond?
Yes, I will respond. Thank you again to those who took time out of your evening to share your concerns with us. For those who don't normally attend these meetings, we do try and give as much of a response as we can right here when we hear your concerns. And if we don't have the response, we then follow up and we'll reach out to you personally to share what our response is to your concern. The first concern regarding parking in the Kensington area, Mr. Sanchez, principal of Columbia High School, did make me aware of his discussion with you regarding the need for students to park in the community, and also the allowance of grace from the police department regarding the need for not just Columbia High School students, but our teachers in some cases to allow for more space in our parking lots for outdoor lunch. We acknowledge the concern that you brought to us. The parking lot that previously housed our buses was deemed unusable in previous years, and I'm sure that Mr. Burnside and his team will look at that space to see what we can do to make it more user-friendly, to allow for more student parking on our premises and less in the community. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. To the gentleman, Mr. Strupp, who brought the concern around the tragedy that occurred in the 70s for the young woman who was murdered in our community. Thank you for bringing that to our attention and sharing your book with us, and the fact that there is not, from your perspective, a memorial to this life loss. I will definitely follow up with the high school team as well as our internal team around what the circumstances are, what has been considered previously, and share that with the board as well. Regarding testing, COVID testing, pool testing, et cetera, we do have a health and wellness subcommittee that is made up of our departments of health as well as our internal healthcare professionals. I do heed to their recommendations, and I do bring questions like this to them for their consideration. We did put forth our district for consideration of the state's recent grant for continued and further testing considerations, and we have a meeting with that organizer of that grant this week. There was another question around surveillance testing, and also a comment regarding anti-Semitism. I think that our board president's statement spoke to our stance against anti-Semitism and racism across our school district and across our community. So thank you for bringing that concern to us, and we'll continue to be mindful of that as we communicate with our community to continue to put forth our commitment for anti-racist, anti-bias exchanges, both in our schoolhouse and in our community and online. There was a comment around the MMS elevator. From the update that I received, unfortunately, the motherboard on that main control panel has died, and we're waiting for that part to come in. I'll follow up with facilities, as Mr. Burnside will as well, to ensure that we're doing all we can to expedite that repair. But it is in need of repair, and it sounds like a very significant one. There were a couple of comments regarding the possibility, I think 3 in a row here, of courtesy busing. The board updated our policies regarding year 1 of our intentional integration initiative, and we had to be more conservative with our approach when it comes to courtesy busing, just to ensure that we can provide busing to those who have the statutory right to receive it. And part of our review of our action plans will be a review of our transportation and how it has fared this year with the increased transportation of our kindergarten students, and how could that be impacted by the following years. We know that we're in COVID, and there's also impact with the number of drivers that have been available and those types of things, but we want to just try to backwards map from that as we move forward with having our schools, doing all we can to ensure our schools represent the demographics of our community. The comment around renaming Jefferson, I would just say that I think that discussion was public in this public space. It was also covered by local media, and there was also, I believe, conversation around involving even our students in a process that will be very transparent regarding that consideration. The renaming of streets and squares and those type of things are beyond the auspices of the Board of Education. The specifics around how principals and teachers organize their outdoor recess and outdoor lunches. In the beginning of the school year and preschool year in the summer, we spoke about some customization that was necessary at our schools, because not every school is in the same place physically. The Tuscan is having a significant amount of construction occur on their blacktop, which significantly reduced the space that they had available for their recess and their lunch. But again, determining how their recess and how their lunch occurs is under the purview of the principal of that school. That is, we have empowered them to do what works for their school, because it doesn't work the same at every building. But we will speak with them and discuss the considerations that were in place. Regarding air purifiers and their installation, I know that I believe we received 375 or so recently, and our facilities department is continuing to place them in our schools. I couldn't give you a date certain because I don't have that in front of me, and I wouldn't want to make a commitment that I wouldn't be able to have confirmed. But I can, if you want to confirm purchase, you could Oprah our purchasing, our POs regarding the purchase of those purifiers to confirm that the numbers that we've given are accurate. Last but not least, concerning there were 2 staffing questions, one around a 2nd grade replacement, and I couldn't really speak about that as it's a personnel matter in this public setting. The second one was around the EBR and the lack of that EBR service for that school. I believe we do have personnel actions that are approaching that will help to fill the vacancies that are impacting the services. I do apologize. We do all we can with our HR department and all of our resources to ensure that we fill vacancies prior to the school year, but some vacancies are hard to fill because we're competing with other districts to fill these vacancies. But our special ed supervisors and principals and assistant principals, as well as our CST teams, are doing all they can to fill those gaps. And if something is in an IEP, then legally it must be given as a service to that student. And so there are compensatory measures that can be taken to ensure that those students receive those services, and we'll make sure that we communicate that out to those families who are impacted. That concludes my comments, Mr. President.
Thank you. Before we move on, Ms. Butler, I realized during the tech issues that I had that I missed a couple that were on the written list. Can I go back and do those now? All right, I don't want to, so apologize for that. You might have more things to answer.
No problem, no problem.
Okay, and one of these is long, so I'll just bring my timer out. And apologies for that, everybody. Okay, so next, I'll say, the next public speaks is from Allison Chagash of South Orange. All right. It has come to my attention that teachers will be receiving a 2% raise this year. In the best of times, our teachers are the backbone of our community. But after the past 18 months, it's hard to reconcile that this is how we are recognizing them for all that they do for our kids. How can this be explained, especially when there is funding for generous administrative increases? Now it's from Allison Tragash of South Orange. The next public speaks is from James Nathanson this time, so apologies for that again. James Nathanson of Maplewood. My name is James Nathanson. I am a 40-year resident of Maplewood. I've been involved in civic affairs for many years and have been a consistent supporter of the diversity and equity initiatives undertaken in our two towns in recent years. My son attended district schools K through 12, including Jefferson School, as part of the Marshall-Jefferson pairing in the late 1980s. On September 17th, I sent a letter to all board members expressing my views on your decision to rename the school. I was critical both of your process and your conclusion. I received a polite, although perfunctory response from Mr. Joshua, thanking me for reaching out and indicating that he looked forward to hearing from the students to whom you have given substantial voice in the choice of a new name. Your deliberations on July 19th focused solely on process, but ignored the complex issues of history and education upon which such action should be based. And your vote on August 16th on Resolution 4190 regarding the renaming was taken without any discussion whatsoever on those very substantive issues. And with all due respect, this is not an issue for children who at a young age lack the necessary knowledge, life experience, maturity, and accountability to render a sound judgment on a matter of this importance. In my letter, I raised substantive questions for you to consider regarding the broader context of such a decision. I offered a broad but balanced perspective on Thomas Jefferson's significant role in the founding of America and his continuing relevance and positive impact on our lives today in Maplewood and South Orange. I expressed some perspectives about the nature of history and how it might be thought about and passed on to our children. I made some suggestions for alternative actions, and I believe that would be more educationally impactful and would more faithfully serve the values of our two communities. Those questions remain unanswered, those perspectives remain unaddressed, and those suggestions remain unheeded. Since I sent the letter, it has been published in local media and has received wide local distribution. My expressed views were not frivolous. Indeed, I should note that I have received most responses from a multitude of individuals indicating their agreement with those views. All right, I'll finish this last sentence. I believe that Maplewood and South Orange deserve a more open and more thoughtful discussion on this issue that has occurred up to this point, and I believe it is your responsibility as public officials to make it happen before you engage in the exercise of choosing a new name for the school. Again, there's more, but his time is up, and that was James Nathanson from Maplewood, for real this time. And our next public speaks is from Malia Herman. Good evening, Board of Education members. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the Board of CPAC. Selma, wait, let me give her a timer. Excuse me 1 second. To CPAC Selma to bring to your attention two critical issues. Since the first day of school on September 13th, there are numerous students at Jefferson and Tuscan schools whose IEPs are out of compliance. These students qualify for evidence-based reading, EBR services provided by an EBR teacher on a daily basis. At Jefferson, there are EBR teachers, but they moved into classrooms where they are filling in for other needed teachers. At Tuscan, there is no EBR teacher. However, there is a teacher qualified to do EBR, but this person has been placed as a special education teacher in an inclusion classroom. We have expressed our concerns and need for a solution with the administration. Now we are alerting you, the Board of Education, because there has been no change and no solution and still no communication to families. Every day a student is not doing EBR is another day they are not receiving the services they need to help them learn how to read. This is not something that gets made up. The reason it is done every day is because that is how it is effective. The second issue is the lack of a working elevator at the Maplewood Middle School. We are told that a work order has been placed and they are waiting on a part. We urge you to expedite this problem. We understand that there are 7 to 8 students who are affected by this on a daily basis. Our district prides itself on being equitable. We respectfully ask the board to work harder to achieve this goal. Special education students are a part of our district's diversity, and they deserve and are legally entitled to a free and appropriate public education. Thank you for your urgent attention to these issues. It is time to make sure every child in our district has an equal opportunity to learn and grow. And that is from the SOMA CPAC SOMA board of Malia Herman, Beth Constantino, Nicole Stewart, Leslie Stone, and Kelly Mortimer. And that, for real this time, concludes our first public speaks.
Thank you. Just to offer additional responses as I look at these cookies that Ms. Malaspina has tempted us with. We can't comment on negotiations, obviously. I think that the question around that, I can't respond to it, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. I believe that I've also already responded to the renaming of Jefferson, and there'll be more information forthcoming, I'm sure, from the board. Regarding the special services piece, I have responded directly to families around the lack of EBR services during this transition. I've also been meeting personally with our special services supervisors in lieu of the vacancy, in lieu of our new assistant superintendent who will begin on November the 1st. We take it very seriously, and we're also doing all we can to fill that need, not just with a warm body, but with a highly qualified educator. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer during these hard to fill circumstances, but we do take it very seriously, and we're doing all we can to fill it.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. We'll now move on to the committee reports. What?
Dr. Taylor, I think you forgot the very first one about testing out of
Yes.
quarantine.
Yes, sorry. So the testing out of quarantine, again, I will share that with our health and wellness subcommittee for consideration. Again, sometimes they take a more conservative approach because they're doing what's in the best interest of our students and community based on the finite data that they have as leaders in this area. Again, I will share it, and I'm trying to think of the last discussion around testing out from this public speaks. I spoke about other spaces that are using that. So thank you for noting that. I'll take that information and also pass it on so that they are aware of those entities that are using that. I believe there were a couple that were local to see how they're doing it and how it's going. And one of the concerns is always, how does it work? Like, how do you get down to the mechanism of it, right? We still have school nurses in our schools taking care of our kids in person. And so they can't now just do testing all day long, right? So there's a lot of programmatic pieces that go along with testing, depending on the model that you pursue. So I would definitely share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. We'll now move on to discussion and go through the committee reports. We'll do it alphabetical order. So we will do finance, personnel, and policy, and then we'll come back with the brief one from CNI, and then we have 2 additional readouts. So, Board Member Wright, the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, President Joshua. The Finance Committee met last week. We talked about the construction update. Number 1, members were updated on the construction taking place at Clinton and Jefferson schools. And both schools are having either their gas line upgrades or meter upgrades. Seth Boyden and Tuscan are having asbestos abatement bids. that will be advertised next week, and the bids are due November 17th. Also, South Mountain and South Mountain Annex rebids are due October 28th. We also discussed the fire alarm systems. We discussed concerns surrounding the older fire panels in the schools. The schools have an annual inspection done by the fire inspector, and the report will be made available to the committee. I'm waiting for that. The excess funds / the vehicles and drivers, the custodial overtime was discussed during the night of the tropical storm Ida. There was an inquiry about the budget line where it would, looking for the budget line of where the overtime was charged. Also, the excess funds that we had that would go back to the community was spent to purchase new vehicles, and we hope to get that money back through grants and IDA funds. The allocation of funds for the BPW settlement. This was discussed in terms of where the funds are coming from, where they will be distributed in compliance with the settlement. So we need to know that. The legal expenses, in accordance with the audit and the state guidelines, the committee questioned a corrective action plan being recommended. President Joshua stated that he and others have discussed controls that can be used to decrease legal spending in the future. As you know, the state has admonished us for our legal spending. It's very, very high. Also, we have continually talked about open FFT meetings. That's the Facilities, Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee, one that I'm reporting on now. We discussed an option of holding open FFT meetings. We continually discuss that. And we have the weapons policy, the updating of the weapons policy 8467 was discussed, and to follow up with human resources regarding employee training and awareness. The vents were also brought up. A diagram was distributed to the committee from the public. It addressed improving air quality in the schools. We continue to talk about the air purifiers, unit ventilators, and other vents were discussed. In new business, 2 resolutions were reviewed by the business office, including bond refinancing, the Danielson contract that may be presented at this board meeting. Also, the need for a snow removal bid to be advertised this month due to the loss of our maintenance vehicles. The safety of outdoor lunch and students being signed out of school during lunch was also brought up. The last thing is that the students bringing and their own devices, technology and iPads to school, and the liability of the school district was debated. The conclusion was that students and their families would assume the risk of their own personal devices that they bring into school, whether they're lost or damaged. It would certainly be on the family. I don't know if we have a policy for that. That was discussed, and that's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Board Member Malspina.
Can either Ms. Wright or Mr. Bonds or whoever address a little more about the bringing in of Chromebook or outside devices and policies related to this? I think there's been some confusion in the community as to if we are endorsing or not the ability to bring in outside devices. So I'm trying to get a clarification on that and sort of how we are moving forward with that.
All right, so I'll just provide a little bit more color on the conversation that happened in
Okay,
committee,
maybe
which
that
was
can-
that, there was, as Board Member Wright stated, there was a discussion about if you bring in your own device and something happens to your device, physically or whatever, is it the district's responsibility? And my belief, the answer is, my understanding is that you're taking your risk when you bring your own device into the school. I noted that there's also district devices for special things, like the assessments are needed to be done on district devices. So there was a little bit of confusion. I know in some families, even if they were bringing their own, the student was bringing their own personal device, did they now need to bring two, or did they now need to bring the district device instead? And so it was like, well, if you're doing testing on district device, you should bring the district device. There's other pros, if you will, to bringing a district device because it's configured to handle the district software, things like that, and you may not necessarily get that. They also won't provide, the district doesn't provide any tech support. If you bring your own device, they won't, that's your device, so they won't do that. So that's another advantage to bringing a district device to the schools. I don't know if Dr. Taylor, if Mr. Bonds wants to, I know he's way back there and he's busy, but if he wants to add anything to that.
I think we've been really transparent in our communications with families on that. So I wouldn't want to misquote it. We can provide the board in your Friday packet our previous communications to the families on this so that there's no misinterpretation. And perhaps if there are questions that arise from those documents, you can share them with the FFT chair and they can be discussed in the next committee meeting.
Okay, I know this stuff, so I just want to make sure that we're okay on policy-wise and everything going forward, to make sure we're, have everything updated in policy-wise so that we're okay.
Yeah, I think it might be one of those things where it wasn't a thing before March of 2020, because you didn't necessarily need to bring your own device to school for anything.
Right.
And I know we had some technology policies that got updated as part of COVID, so I don't know if this was covered in there, but I know generally the position is they are not responsible for if you bring your own device. And again, if there's any tech support issues that you may have, they won't support that. And password resetting is different, I think, because that's your own, that's your school account. And we know that the librarians at the district are in charge of that, but I don't think, again, with the actual device, if you bring it in, it's your responsibility. It's the student's responsibility.
Okay, I guess I'm bringing it to Ms. Bergen's attention that may be something we need to look at in policy committee.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for finance? No? All right, we will now move on to personnel. Board Member Manning.
Thank you. So on tonight's agenda, you will see that our Assistant Superintendent of Special Services, Ms. Budine, has been able to move their start date up to November 1st, as Dr. Taylor mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, and that our assistant principal at the high school, Ms. Morrison, was also able to move up her start time to October 1st. So that's great news for our district. Also in the resolutions, it's exciting that Dr. Taylor is recommending a facilities director that will report to the business administrator, Mr. Burnside. This person comes with significant experience in other school districts, and we are looking forward to an attention to detail and process management to support not only the facilities projects, but also address the other $200 million of identified repairs that were not covered by the facilities plan, so that we don't forget that. The administration has also advertised for the reimagined security role, the school community safety liaison, and have received several applicants, some with significant experience working on college campuses and balancing the social emotional needs of children with the facility safety in that sphere. We're looking forward to the outcome of that process. We are also awarding over 80 staff members with perfect attendance for the 2020-21 school year. We thank our SOMEA partners for waiting for us to verify the attendance, but am honored to award SOMEA staff this year. In the financial resolutions, there's a recommendation to enter into a pilot agreement with CLEAR. CLEAR, as Dr. Taylor mentioned in his action plan update, is going to support the work towards district goal number 5 related to the root cause analysis of a registration, onboarding, and residency certification. This CLEAR uses resources from multiple data sets to support our registration and residency verification process. This is a pilot program for this year, and the cost for one user is about $400 a month. The administration would like to use this tool as an additional piece of information as they recreate the entire registration process. The idea is to think about how to use this tool as an overlay on deciding whether it warrants the next level of investigation. There is a commitment from the administration to track the clear results across multiple incident types and the outcomes so that we can ensure that there is no bias in that underlying data, even though it, as Dr. Taylor mentioned, it limits the implicit bias of the user, but there could still be a bias in how this data is collected, and that the value of the process is actually cost-effective and worthy of going through. We also discussed the demographics of our new hires and have begun thinking about ways to look at demographics of who has left in the first 4 years or pre-tenure and who was hired as their replacement. The administration is going to share this information with the building leaders and supervisors for feedback and next steps. And finally, as reported last month, we were working on the employee relationship policy. And the follow-up from last month was Dr. Taylor was going to reach out to his colleagues across the county and the state. There are no policies in other districts that outline employee relationships that we yet found. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't have one. It just means that we have to use some other approaches, and we also have to understand how Title IX, affirmative action, and the definition of power imbalance and quid pro quo is defined in a school district. So we hope to have a policy for first read in November, and I'll make sure that we get that to everyone since it is a tight turnaround. And that is all I have from our meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for personnel? All right, we'll move on to policy. Board Member Bergen.
Thank you. The Policy Committee met on October 11th for about 2 hours. Tonight, we are voting to enact 5 policies and repeal 2. I will go through them in number order. 1648.11 is the Road Forward COVID-19 Health and Safety Policy. Sorry. This policy replaces the Road Back Reopening Plan from last year, and its attachments are being pulled from the district handbook. 1648.13, School Employee Vaccination Requirements. This policy covers the school employee vaccination or testing mandate from the state. This month, we revised it regarding the timing of submitting weekly test results and to clarify that the employee pays any costs associated with testing. 3160.01, Quarantine for Teaching Staff. This policy did not come from Ngsba. It addresses when teaching staff must use leave and when they're permitted to teach virtually in the event the staff member needs to quarantine. Since last month, we revised it slightly to clarify that teachers who must quarantine due to travel must use their leave. We also put a cap of 10 days on the ability to teach virtually while home with a quarantining child, and that the virtual option is only available if the child is unvaccinated due to age or medical reasons. The Policy Committee also discussed whether we need equivalent quarantine policies for other categories of staff besides teachers, and we determined that personnel can discuss that at their next meeting, but that it shouldn't hold up passage of this policy. And there are 2 outdated pandemic policies to repeal tonight, 1648 Restart and Recovery and 1648.02 Remote Learning. And the non-pandemic policies to vote on tonight, the first is 5770 Student Right of Privacy. It addresses searches of students and their belongings. And under the policy, the board will receive monthly reports that include information about who is searched, why, and the outcome and follow-up with the student. And we are also voting on 5751, the Sexual Harassment Policy tonight. The revised Title IX Sexual Harassment Policy is based on a version from Title IX specialists and is designed to put the district into compliance with the legal requirements of Title IX. And I want to thank Dr. Perez, I don't know if she's still here, for her hard work and all the attention to detail on this policy, as well as her patience in answering all of the questions that such a long and involved policy elicited from the board. And we have 4 policies for first read this month. The first is 0143.2, student representative to the Board of Education. And we're proposing to revise this policy on the election of the student board rep to remove the requirement to get a signature of a current board member in order to run. We think it creates an unnecessary hurdle to students running for board rep. 2422, health and physical education. This policy was revised a few years ago and is back due to updates from Ssda. Among other topics, it addresses requirements for sex education, abstinence, consent, dating, violence, suicide prevention, and recess, and when recess can be taken away. It's kind of a kitchen sink policy, and it also includes financial literacy, DEI education, and education regarding the accomplishments of disabled, LGBT, and African Americans in our country. 2425, emergency virtual or remote instruction program. This is a new stress ESME policy to address the scenario where the district must close schools for public health reasons for more than 3 consecutive days, so that those virtual instruction days can count towards the 180-day school year. 2431, athletic competition. This policy addresses competitive sports, and we selected the options that will permit homeschooled students and students in out-of-district placements to participate in district sports. And we also discussed 2417 pupil INRS, which had a first read already, and we decided to hold on to it this month. We received feedback and want to spend time revising it. In particular, we want to make sure that the INRS action plans are monitored and that they don't become a barrier to families accessing the special services process. We also want to encourage the district to develop a coherent approach to the INRS process across schools, which dovetails with the district goals. And we want to allow the new superintendent for special services to weigh in on the policy before it comes back again for first read in November. We had a guest appearance from Ms. Butler and discussed the code of conduct and the role of the board in approving it. And we discussed being more careful in distinguishing between the student discipline policy, which the board approves, and the code of conduct itself, which is an attachment to that policy. And finally, I'm happy to report that the online policies have now been updated on the online website, and thank Ms. Moore for her dedication to getting everything on the website. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for policy? Board Member Manning.
Board Member Bergen, can you tell us what's up for first read again? I think I'm missing one.
Some were added over the weekend. There's the student board rep policy.
Right.
Health and physical education.
I don't see that, yeah.
I thought that
maybe I need to refresh. Let me see.
you may need to refresh. Emergency virtual or remote instruction program.
Yep, that's there.
And athletic competition.
So that, I don't see that, okay.
I believe they were added yesterday. Let me double check if the attachments.
Okay.
If you refresh your, if you refresh the actual regular session and then scroll to the bottom, you'll see them broken down there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for policy? Okay.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Board Member
just
Manning.
thank you to the policy committee for soliciting feedback from all board members and helping us close the gap. I know it's a lot of work, but it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you for always reading the policies and sending me feedback.
All right. I will just quickly run through, as we know, most of us were, well, I think all of us were at CNI. So just very quickly, we discussed we had a presentation on summer school data review from Mr. Willard, CHS. We had a Leader in Me presentation from Ms. Connors, Ms. Correa, and a couple of our Clinton staff members. We discussed some of the curriculum reviews that are on our agenda for this evening, as well as field trips and the Danielson revision, the Danielson training. All of those are on tonight's agenda. Dr. Freeman provided a portrait of a graduate update, And then Ms. Bonner provided an update on the Start Strong testing assessments. Dr. Freeman provided an update on the virtual emergency virtual remote instruction plan, which is also on the agenda for this evening. We talked about the DCR letter, and updates on Title IX and training, as well as task force, as well as the policies that Board Member Bergen just mentioned. And so that concludes our CNI. Let me now run.
Question about CNI.
Yes.
I think there was some, Dr. Freeman was supposed to get back to us on some of the questions related to, that we had related to Mr. Willard's presentation, and we haven't received any feedback yet. Is that forthcoming?
It's forthcoming, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now, since you have your mic up, I'm going to come to you.
Okay.
For the Essex County Regional Services Commission
Yes,
update, and then we'll follow with Board Member Cuddle and the Njsba BOD.
So just for a note in the agenda, it's not the right acronym. So just know that, so in case we have to change that. The ERESC, so what it is, because I had to learn this too, is it's the Essex Regional Educational Service Commission. And I was recently installed as one of its board of directors, and its board of directors consists of elected representatives elected by the boards of education from 10 of its constituent member school districts. The board of directors meets monthly to oversee the administration of services, and we will be meeting this Thursday. Basically, what the ERESC it does is it operates 3 special education and alternative schools: the Essex Junior Academy, the Essex Campus Academy, and the Essex High School. In addition, it operates an educational program at the Essex County Youth Detention Center called Sojourn High School, and serves students in grades 7 through 12. It was originally established for non-public school services, but now we have non-public nursing, child study team services, transportation, paraprofessionals, public school home instruction, public school child study team services, migrant education, homeless education, purchasing, cooperative purchasing, extended day and year services, lots of other stuff. I'm not going to go into all of them, but they do a lot of things. Some things that we might want to look into because they can possibly save us some money. And we just had our first meeting. We are filling a budget gap due to COVID, especially because they couldn't do most of the things that they normally did in previous years. So they are working on filling that budget gap. And we have another meeting on Thursday, and I'll get back to you more. But it is something that we might want to look into possibly utilizing more, because they have some good services that could possibly be helpful for us.
Thank you. Any questions for Board Member Malaspina? Okay, we'll now go to Board Member Cuddle with the Njsba Board of Directors report.
Thank you, President Joshua. The Njsba Board of Directors met on October 1st. There were 35 out of 40 counties represented. I was representing Essex County on behalf of Essex County, and also South Orange Maplewood School District and the Essex County School Board Association. I'm just going to do some really brief topical highlights in that meeting because it was the first one of the year. Njsba did highlight their new pandemic report and their latest study on education that was sent out to all board members, called Rebuilding Opportunities for Students. Basically, the report looks at social emotional learning, school learning loss, better effective programs to meet pandemic-related gaps, the role of arts education and social emotional learning, especially during the pandemic, supporting special needs populations. That report is now available now. I believe all of my board colleagues have received a copy sent out from Njsba previously. Njsba also, in our BOD meeting, we talked about the strategic plan. President Joshua mentioned that he was able to represent our school district as part of planning with the group that's going to be coming up with the strategic plan for NJSBA. That's going to be presented to our next, to the Board of Directors at our next meeting on November 19th. So thank you to President Joshua and those other board member colleague members that are putting that together right now. They also talked about Workshop 2021. President Joshua also mentioned that. I will say during the Board of Director meeting, they did give us the virtual walkthrough. And for those, my board colleagues who were part of the virtual session last year, they have improved it. And it actually looked really cool. So it was the online access and the portals and the way that you can engage, not just with vendors, but within the sessions. There's also a whole new part for the virtual component that they built in, where you're going to be able to do more meet and greets with other colleagues from across the state and have sessions to be able to do some more engagement activities. That seemed really great. There will be board member academy credits available, not just for board members seeking not just required training, but those that want to be part of the board member academy, and including staff. So all of our district staff and personnel that need required training, that will be able to happen virtually at workshop as well. So please look out for that. Just really quickly, we went over the budget for the year. That was approved in the NJSBA Board of Directors. We also approved the goals for NJSBA, similar to how we do district goals and board goals. NJSBA also sets their goals for the year. We also approved legislative committee appointments. I'd just like to acknowledge board member Vice President Siders, who is one of the 3 Essex County members that are serving on the legislative committee. So thank you for that, and stepping up in service. And the other thing, I wrote it down here so I wouldn't forget, that was mentioned is really important, that within so far in 2021, there's been 20 new school bills that have been signed into law. Specifically, we also talked about, and it's highlighted, that Governor Murphy had signed a new mental health bill that will allow districts to perform mental health screenings for students and provide additional funding opportunities for student mental health and social emotional support. And also wanted to highlight that the new anti-hazing policy that's up right now on the state level, S84 or A4267, that piece of legislation itself would require instances of higher education as well as also public schools to adopt policies around hazing, which is timely since this is October and it's anti-bullying month. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. For one last thing for my board colleagues to know, that the Board of Directors did pass a revised goals around creating the board academy. So that means that because the revised goals allow during COVID for any board colleagues that want to be part of the board member academy, allowing more flexibility for additional training opportunities using virtual options as well as hybrid options. But also you no longer have to wait to certain times a year to take certain trainings and or receive your certifications that were dependent upon a certain time of year, though you still have to meet all of the credits and the benchmark in order to complete those certifications. They're able to be more flexible in a timely manner. So that concludes my NJSBA Board of Directors report. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Cuttle. Any questions?
I guess it's somewhat related. When will we be receiving our information about logging in for the NJSB, I'm saying it wrong,
The workshops?
Yeah, the workshops for all of us, because I know we're all have information to attend. Is that something that's coming soon, or?
Traditionally, that comes through our business administrator. That would be sent out once they get the login credentials.
Okay.
Yep.
But if you're interested in learning to want to know what the preview of what the portal is going to look like, it's on the NGSB website now, and you can do a little tour.
Oh, great, thank you.
All right, I'll send that around because I think we all have the link, but I'll just send it because it gets buried in those NJSBA emails. I'll forward it around so everyone has it.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, no problem. Let me just write down to do that. Okay, Dr. Taylor, I think we're now to the. I'm having a little bit of technical issues. We are now at the action portion of the meeting. So do you want to make the motion? I believe this is what I have. I don't know if there's anything else.
4-2.
And it's right here.
14 and 7.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Board President, and thank you to everyone who brought committee reports. Before we move towards action, I just want to acknowledge the beautiful art that we have in the hallway here in the DMR from Seth Boyden that was brought together by Laura Krulinski, an art teacher at Seth Boyden, from many students in many classes. As we're now relaunching our in-person world, we're now going to have monthly updates from our schools showing off their work here in the hallway. So I just want to give Seth Boyden and again, Laura Kowinski, a thank you for that. Krulinskis, my apologies. I'd like to move forward with putting forward before the board resolutions 4204 through 4214, and severing 4209 and 4207I.
Before I ask for a second, is there anything else?
Yes, I'd like to sever 4204.
Dr. Taylor, can I get you to please repeat what you said about what you wanted to sever from 4204 to 4214?
Sure,
So now
42.
just start with 4205 now.
Okay, so it would be 4205 through 4214, and that would be severing, I guess it's not putting forward 4204, 4207I. And is that 4294?
4209.
Okay, 4209, thank you.
Excuse me, to make sure that we have a discussion on the suspension resolution.
We will, that's coming later, and we will.
Also, I have a hand carry resolution.
Yep, should we do that now? I thought we had to do that after we
You
voted.
can do that at the end.
Okay, so we'll do it at the end.
After these,
Okay,
they're already moved.
all right, thank you. That's the financial resolution for Clear.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, I was not seeing.
All right, so just for clarity, the motion is to move 4205 through 4214 with the exceptions of 4207I and 4209. All right?
And the 4204.
Right, I skipped that.
Yep.
So is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Manny, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that appears to be unanimous, Mr. Burnside. We're now at the discussion portion for those items. Any discussion?
I have concerns about 4204.
We're not doing that yet.
Those are
Sorry,
separate.
sorry.
We severed it. Okay.
Confused.
Any discussion on the items? Move forward. All right, seeing none, close the discussion. Mr. Burnside, can you please call the roll for
I'm sorry.
Board Member Wright?
Yes, the Clear policy.
It's already been severed, Board Member Wright.
Okay, thank you.
That's 4207I.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Seeing no further questions, close the discussion. Mr. Burnside, can you please take the roll for items 4205 through 4214 with the exceptions of 4209 and 4207I?
Board Member Bergen.
Yes.
Board Member Cuddle.
Yes.
Board President Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Manny.
Yes.
Board Member Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Saban.
Yes.
Board Member Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Allow now to move resolution 4204. I have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any all in favor? All right, that's unanimous, Mr. Burnside. We're now discussing 4204. Board Member Malaspina.
Yes, I have concerns about the fact that we were not given any real resume or anything related to one of the staff members who has a position that I would, I'm trying to be, trying to be careful here with what I say, but that is a position that I believe is very important within the district and one that we should have had I believe, a resume for before we are approving it.
Dr. Taylor, any comments?
Yeah, so we do share information. We even go beyond recommendations from the New Jersey School Board Association regarding cabinet level positions. When there are cabinet level positions that are up for consideration, we also invite the chair of personnel to observe those proceedings. This position is not a cabinet level position. It reports to one. So we do not deem it necessary or appropriate to share anything other than the agenda item as it currently sits.
Just also want to point out that there was discussion about the candidate during our personnel meeting, where we talked about experience and the role, ability to start, and I don't know if there's anything else move on that.
That was not shared with the full committee.
It was part of my readout, actually. The part of the email I sent out, I talked about the experience where that a person's in another district, has had a wealth of experience, and it was also in the committee readout. And it was also, to the extent I can discuss in executive session.
Motion to call the resolution.
Can I have a second? Thank you, Board Member Wingfield. Mr. All in favor, I guess? Yep, moving resolution. It's not unanimous. Can you call the roll on, I guess, closing discussion on resolution 4204? This is a motion to close discussion on 4204.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. We're going to do a roll call, Board Member Wright.
Board Member Wright?
No.
That was a no.
Thank you. Board Member Wingfield?
Yes.
Board Member Siders?
Yes.
Board Member Saban?
Yes.
Board Member Malaspina?
No.
Board Member Manny?
Yes.
Board President Joshua?
Yes.
Board Member Cuddle?
Yes.
Board Member Bergen?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you now please call the roll on 4204?
Board Member Bergen?
Yes.
Board Member Cuddle?
Yes.
Board President Joshua?
Yes.
Board Member Manny?
Yes.
Board Member Malaspina?
Didn't we just vote on 4204?
We voted to
Oh,
close
that was voting to
discussion.
close
Now we're
discussion.
voting to pass
Okay,
it.
I'm very confused by that. No.
Board Member Saban?
Yes.
Board Member Siders?
Yes.
Board Member Wingfield?
Yes.
Board Member Wright?
No.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Now move resolutions 4207I and 4209 for discussion. May I have a second? Thank you, Board Member Bergen. All in favor? All right, that appears to be unanimous, Mr. Burnside. We're now discussing 4207I and 4209. Any questions?
Which is, I don't know one from the other.
Okay,
42
you can talk about either one, Board Member Wright, because I moved them both together.
Okay,
But to be clear, 420, I'll just clarify for you. 4207I is the resolution to approve Thomson Reuters Clear product, and 4209 is the removal of non-domiciled students. Did you want to comment on either?
The clear policy, again, I can't comment because I commented in closed session. My thoughts, I'm ready for the vote.
Thank you, Board Member Wright. Any other questions or comments on 4207I and or 4209? All right, seeing none, closing discussion. Mr. Burnside, can you please call the roll for 4207I?
Board Member Wright.
No.
Board Member Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Saban.
Yes.
Board Member Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Manny.
Yes.
Board President Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Cuddle.
Yes.
Board Member Bergen.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Burnside. Can you now please call the roll for Resolution 4209?
Board Member Bergen.
Yes.
Board Member Cuddle.
Yes.
Board President Joshua.
Yes.
Board President Manny. I'm sorry, Board Member Manny.
Yes.
Board Member Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Saban.
Yes.
Board Member Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Wright.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. I'd now like to move forward the hand carry resolution 4205. I believe I need to read it into the record first. Okay. This is resolution 4215. I said zero, I'm sorry. 4215. Resolution for action. Subject is moratorium or suspensions for the 2021-2022 school year. Whereas the South Orange, I feel like I'm not going this, let me do this way. Okay, here we go. Whereas the South Orange Maplewood School District is committed to equity, diversity, and inclusivity, and whereas the South Orange Maplewood School District is committed to providing safe and welcoming spaces for all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, national origin, language, disability status, gender expression or identity, and sexual orientation. And whereas the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education is in support of and is committed to promoting inclusive, welcoming, safe school environments that promote respect, dignity, and equality. And whereas the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education wishes to further the district's commitment to provide a climate and culture that is free from harassment and discrimination, including from unlawful sexual harassment and or misconduct and all forms of violence, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And whereas the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education is committed to a district-wide implementation of restorative practices, including restorative justice, that helps students and staff resolve conflicts peacefully and respectfully while reducing the use of punitive discipline and decreasing racial disparities in discipline. And whereas it is well established that removal from school through punitive disciplinary responses negatively impacts engagement and connection to school throughout a student's experience. And whereas students' perception of trust and connection to school establish fundamental social and emotional skills that form the foundation for academic success. And whereas research has established significant causality between removal from school through punitive disciplinary responses and a reduced likelihood of graduating on time. And whereas as students return to full-time in-person learning for the first time in over 19 months, they need additional social and emotional supports to address a number of pandemic-related mental health and wellness needs. And whereas research shows that Black students are more than twice as likely to be suspended than white students. And whereas research shows that comprehensive implementation of restorative practices reduces overall use of suspensions and significantly reduces suspensions for Black students. And whereas, to the extent that the Code of Conduct and this resolution are in conflict, this resolution will supersede the Code of Conduct, and be it resolved that the South Orange and Maplewood Board of Education directs the superintendent to immediately institute a one-year school year 21-22 moratorium on all suspension school removals, except in isolated and extreme cases where there is credible and significant threat to the well-being of students or staff, subject to the superintendent's approval. And be it further resolved that the South Orange and Maplewood Board of Education directs the superintendent to convene a task force comprised of identified students, staff, and educators to evaluate and assess the current state of pre-K to 12 restorative practices and social emotional supports through regular meetings, as well as through the administering of a brief climate and culture survey to students in grades 6 through 12 in the fall and early winter, and again in the spring. The task force will use the findings to suggest necessary adjustments and additions to strengthen our current approach to restorative practices. The superintendent will complete a report with the results of that assessment, as well as recommendations to the board no later than March 31st, 2022, and present it at the following general board meeting. May I have a second? Thank you, Board Member Wakefield. I got some. All in favor? All right, that appears to be unanimous. Mr. Burnside, any?
It's not unanimous.
No, it's not unanimous.
I can't see you, Board Member Wright, so can you please call the roll? I'm sorry, Board Member Wright, I can't see you, so.
Are we going to be discussing this?
We are going to be, Board Member Wright, we're just moving it to discussion. This isn't a vote.
Okay.
This is just moving it to discussion. Are you against moving it to discussion?
Yes.
Of course I'm not. You know better than that.
I can't see you, so I don't know. This is what, you interrupted me to say that you were not in favor of it, but I can't even see you, so I don't know what we were talking about. I just wanted to be clear. We're having the discussion. I'm moving it to discussion, okay? All in favor?
Very well.
Okay, that does appear to be unanimous, Mr. Burnside. We're now discussing 4215, moratorium on suspensions for the 21-22 school year. Board Member Wright, since I can't see you, but I know you have something you would like to comment, so I'm going to give the floor to you first.
Okay. Yeah, this is something that came quite as a shock over the last 48 hours, that we're moving a resolution to have a moratorium on suspensions for the entire district. I don't know how legal that is. I know that we have all kinds of issues. We have a whole, listen, in your resolution, when you read it, you stated that we would form another task force. I think our district and our community are sick of task forces that come from the Board of Education, because they end up being absolutely forgotten about or buried. But I'm more concerned about the discipline that we will not have at our secondary schools in particular, when you say you have a moratorium on suspension. You have a lawless environment to such a point that we have come to this level. We are drafting a resolution that goes against laws. We have laws in town and in the state that talks about drugs in schools, weapons in schools, and we're leaving something to someone's discretion to decide what will be and what will not be. Are we saying that it's okay for kids to sell drugs in school? It's okay for kids to fight. And we can't blame everything on a pandemic. Once again, I feel that we are basically using policy to run the schools. And we've done that in the past, and we seem to be picking that up again. We are selling out our students again, and for whom? What school boards association class did we take that would send out a resolution that hasn't even been discussed with board members? Again, transparency, collaboration, it just has not happened. To receive a phone call or an email saying that we're gonna put this in without having a discussion with the entire board, let alone the community and all of our stakeholders, our students, our teachers, our administrators, to do this as an isolated kind of thing in silos that's going to have such a devastating impact on the school district is I can't even believe I'm sitting here talking about this right now because it is so serious and it's also so egregious. What are the town laws about selling and possession of drugs? I know what they are, and I can quote them. The bottom line is that I just want to be clear and to be sure that you understand what this resolution is all about. And the community needs to be sure. Because what we're saying is that someone can come in and sell drugs in the high school, they can bring guns and weapons in the high school, because when you tell children that there are no lines and no guidelines for them, there aren't. And it's, for me, it's lawless, and it's typical.
Let's represent what the resolution says.
Remember, right, thank you for
You're
that.
trying to say that Black kids
Please,
are
guys, I
being
can't hear her.
suspended an overwhelming number, and so therefore we must put a moratorium on this so they can get educated. I would like to see you have some concern about how kids are not being educated in this district, and spend the time on that as first to trying to do away with all of the hard work that the community members have done. I remember the strategic plan.
Okay.
Let go.
That-
So I'm just saying, this is not a good thing for us to do, and we need to discuss it more. I haven't even digested the entire resolution. I've just, within the last 24 hours, this is ridiculous to bring this in front of the board and say, we're gonna implement this. And we haven't even had a report from the committee that is coming out of, which is the Security Committee of all things.
Okay, board member, I can't see you, so I don't know if you're finished. Are you done?
I'm just saying we have a big drug bust on Friday, and on Monday we have a resolution to do away with suspensions.
Thank you for your comments, board member Wright. And, hopefully we can get the camera resolved by next meeting so we don't have the constant back and forth. I don't want to be rude and talk over you, but I have a hard time identifying when you're done speaking, so I appreciate that. Thank you. I guess I'll say a couple things before I turn it over to others for comments. Number one, I guess it's alarming to me that the idea that getting rid of suspensions means we get rid of discipline. I didn't realize that that was the only form of discipline that happens in our schools, and if that's the case, then I think it's exactly why we would need to do a policy like this. So that's all I'll say. I know usually the president's supposed to go last, but I felt compelled to say that right then and there. Board Member Wakefield.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say is just I want to thank all of my board colleagues for their time that they took over the weekend to discuss this resolution, to offer really valuable feedback that went into shaping the resolution. And honestly, this is a conversation that we've been having as a board and that we've been having as a community for certainly as long as I've been on the board, and I know before that as well. We know exactly what the data says. We know what our students have said. We've collectively shared our concerns over our district's approach to implementing restorative practices for months now, especially in the context of our concerns for how we plan to social emotionally support our students in a post-pandemic return to schools. Our young people have been away from their in-person learning communities for nearly 2 years, and the absolute last thing that they need is any additional time away from school. The research is unambiguous on this topic. Suspensions do not work to reduce incidents of concerning conduct. Rather, they cause further breakdown and disconnection from the larger community while negatively impact students academically, including statistically decreasing a student's chance of graduating from high school on time. Lastly, and as we have discussed together on this board at length, we know, and the data confirms, that our Black and brown students are significantly more likely to receive a suspension during their time in SOMSD. Nationally, Black students are nearly twice as likely to be suspended as their white counterparts, and here in this district, they are 3 times as likely. And in this school year alone, in our first month of reporting suspension data, 100% of our suspensions are Black students. I understand that there may be questions and concerns around the urgent nature of this resolution. The urgency is intentional and it's warranted. As we wait to address this issue, there are children living
and struggling in these disparities. So while the resolution reserves the right for the superintendent to issue suspensions in rare and extreme circumstances, many of which Ms. Wright just addressed, issues of weapons in school, issues of selling drugs, issues that are mandated by state law for suspensions to be issued. We give the right of the superintendent to issue disciplinary measures when appropriate. This resolution calls for an immediate end to suspensions as a response to the vast majority of conduct infractions, while the task force will study gaps in our current approach to restorative practices, along with recommendations for strengthening those efforts and moving away from suspensions as a long-term strategy. We have made a significant investment in restorative practices in this district, and it is time for us to call on a return on that investment on behalf of our students.
Thank you. Board Member Malasmina and then Board Member Manny.
I have a question and then a comment. Were teachers and administrators included and involved in the creation of this?
No.
I can tell you that the folks who are involved in the creation of this were each and every one of you at this table.
No.
In conversations that I had with you specifically over the weekend, and the conversations that we've had in our committee meetings, several committee configurations over the last several months.
So that would be a no to teachers and administrators being involved.
I don't have contact with teachers and administrators as part of my role as a Board of Education member.
Okay, thank you. I ask that this resolution be tabled until we can understand the unintended content, full board discussion on it until now. Without the input of the administration, teachers, and the public before passing this, the implementation of restorative practices is bound to fail, and that's not what anyone wants. I believe we cannot spring something so important and so sweeping on them without their input. So why are we rushing to something so crucial without anyone seeing it or commenting on it? In the spirit of transparency and fair practice, we must table this until we can get input from everyone affected. To pass something this important at almost 10:30 at night with no one having a chance to even see it is wrong. As you know, I believe highly in restorative practices and have asked and will continue to ask that we take part in a restorative circle to heal the wounds that we are still dealing with. Still, I believe that for restorative practices to work, it must be something that the teachers and administrators who want to do instead of forcing it upon them. Restorative practices do not work by edict. Teachers and students must buy into the practice and trust the process. By doing this way, we are doing the total opposite. I have concerns about the vagueness of the wording related to it being left up to the superintendent to decide when to suspend somebody or not. Discipline is the job for the administrators who are supposed to use the recently revised Code of Conduct as their guide. The Code of Conduct spells out what offenses should be handled using restorative practices and which violations lead to suspensions. If board members had concerns about the Code of Conduct, they should have expressed these during the many opportunities that were presented to us, and not by superseding the Code of Conduct. Suspensions are not usually left solely to the superintendent's discretion, nor should they be. He does not know the children as the administration does, and he has a lot of other things on his plate, including a long-range facilities plan, the intentional integration plan, implementation of board goals and action plans. Yes, sometimes suspensions have been handed out inconsistently, but you do not achieve consistency through consolidation. I feel that we as a board are overreaching to place a moratorium on the suspensions just because we want restorative practices to be more widely used. I am all for a task force and a climate survey, but we can implement those without putting a moratorium in place. We can and should use restorative practices in conjunction with consequences such as suspension when warranted. I'm currently taking a grad class on restorative practices and even made sure to reach out to my professor, an expert in restorative practices, to verify if my understanding was correct. She stated, quote, "You can most definitely suspend restoratively. Suspension should still be an exception and should also be warranted, but when a removal can be done with a circle to deter, but even a removal can be done with a circle to determine the suspension. You can also require reflective work be done during the suspension, and a return to school should then occur via regenerative circle that includes those harmed and supported and an agreement for repair. This does not need to be a situation of doing restorative practices or suspensions. Both can and should be used when appropriate."
Thank you for that, Board Member Mouseman. I just want to clarify that, because I've heard it several times now, the resolution does not say superintendent's discretion. It says superintendent's approval. I just want to clarify that. I do think that is a difference that needs to be, that distinction needs to be made. Board Member Manny.
I move that we close this discussion and take it to vote.
I have something else to say before we do that.
I think there's a
Board Member
motion.
Wright, Board Member Wright, I just want to ensure, there is a motion, but I want to make sure anyone else has the opportunity to comment first before you have a chance, because we have heard you on this mission. I want to make sure anyone else wants to add to this conversation before we move forward. All right, Ms. Board Member Wright, do you have a question about the resolution?
Now, I have a comment about this resolution and the timing of it. Why is there suddenly a discussion now that we have a child who is not Black who has been caught with contraband? I have never heard.
Board Member Wright, respectfully, we don't know. We are not given that information.
You cannot, excuse
Board
me.
Member Wright, you can't talk about students who were arrested.
Excuse me, Board Member
about
Wright.
a moratorium
Board
on a
Member Wright, our
resolution.
council is trying to advise you on something.
Board Member Wright, please cease discussing anything having to do with students.
That were far less than what happened.
Board Member Wright.
All right, we can't do, if you're not going to abide by the rules of
Board Member
engagement
Wright,
here,
you
we have to
cannot
close
discuss
discussion.
students.
Board Member Wright, I'm going to second Board Member Manny's motion to close discussion. We can't have a productive discussion if you're going to violate the rules when we're talking about students and alleged incidents. That's wholly inappropriate for any of us on the board, particularly someone who's been here 8.5 years. I'm going to move to close discussion. Mr. Burnside, may I have a second, please? Thank you, Board Member Bergen. So I have two motions. I'm closing discussion. I will take Board Member Manny's motion, Board Member Malspina's motion to table table the resolution. Can I have a second on that? It's your resolution, so I need a second. Can I have a second to table the resolution? The motion to table the resolution? Sorry, no second, I can't move to table it. All right, motion to close discussion. Thank you, Board Member Winkfield. Let me ask you one question.
I was trying to make a motion. I was trying to come up, I'm sorry, President Joshua, to table the motion. I think we really need to table it. I'm sorry, I couldn't get my thing. It's been stuck here with my mute thing.
I know, I mean, and again, if I could see you, I'd be able to at least see you waving your hands or something.
Yeah, and
so
I
would
really hope
understand.
people are not having meetings inside a meeting with texting.
Thank you for seconding. So let me reset for everybody. Board Member Malspina has made a motion to table it. Board Member Wright has seconded that motion to table it. Board Member, you wish. Mr. Burnside, can you take a vote to table Resolution 4215?
Board Member Bergen.
No.
Board Member Cuddle.
No.
Board President Joshua.
No.
Board Member Manning.
No.
Board Member Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Saban.
No.
Board Member Siders.
No.
Board Member Wingfield.
No.
Board Member Wright.
Yes.
Motion doesn't pass.
Thank you, Mr. Burnside. I'll now make a motion to
Close discussion.
Close discussion, right, on 4215. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Siders. Mr. Burnside, can you please call the roll? This is to close discussion on 4215.
Board Member Wright.
We're closing discussion.
Yes, this is the motion to close discussion for 4215.
Closed.
Was that a yes or a no, Board Member Wright? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, no, you can close it.
All right, so I presume that's a yes.
Board Member Wingfield.
Sorry, yes.
Yes.
Board Member Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Saban.
Yes.
Board Member Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Manning.
Yes.
Board President Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Cuddle.
Yes.
Board Member Bergen.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to vote on resolution 4215. May I have a second, please? Thank you, Board Member Bergen. Mr. Burnside, can you please call the roll for resolution 4215?
Board Member Bergen.
Yes.
Board Member Cuddle.
Yes.
Board President Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Manning.
Yes.
Board Member Malaspina.
No.
Board Member Saban.
Yes.
Board Member Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Wright.
No.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Burnside. All right, that concludes the action portion of the meeting. We're now at the time for our second public speaks. Let me see if we have any before I read this. Okay. I don't see any additional audio comments. Moving on to the written comments. And I don't see any additional comments there any additional on the written comments. And anybody in the audience? No? Okay, so that concludes our second public speaks. Now I'd like to move on to new business. Any new business for this evening?
I do.
Board Member Malaspina.
I would like us to move forward with the idea of looking into a memorial for Carol Farino. I might be saying her name wrong, which was what Mr. Strupp brought up last night. I believe this is something we should look into doing. And also at the same time, I would like to sort of figure out more, because I know this is something we had discussed, which was changing the name of Underhill Field. And do we have any updates on that, or how we are planning to move forward on that? Because I feel like we really need to do something to honor Ngsba.
All I know is that we're still waiting on additional research about the naming and any conventions that are associated with it, while also investigating other ways to memorialize the late Mr. Fofana. So that by no means are we suggesting that nothing will be done. We're just continuing to investigate the possibility of renaming Underhill Field and what other alternatives might be feasible in the short term, because we know there's there's research there about, Underhill and how it got to be and et cetera. So that's why I'm saying where it is right now. I've asked for updates, so as we get updates, I will continue to pass those along to the board.
Thank you.
Any other new business this evening? Board Member Cottle?
Thank you, President Joshua. Just for community update, I just wanted to put out there that Selma Shares is collecting gently used coats, snow pants, and boots for this second time this year for our needed students and families. So if you have any gently used infant up to youth, teenager type coats, jackets, and snow pants. They're collecting those. That's really important this year, especially now with climate change and our weather changing, and students coming back into the building now more than ever. Outside of food insecurity, our students need to be able to be warm. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I also just wanted to acknowledge that it is October, so it is National Anti-Bullying Awareness Month. I've got my purple on today for Bullying Awareness Day, and encourage the rest of our board and our community to reflect and wear purple for bullying. And just to close as well, to acknowledge that October is LGBT History Month, and our wonderful Columbia High School is proudly flying the progressive intersectional pride flag outside of the building, which is a welcoming sign for our students' families. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business this evening? All right.
My hand is up. I don't know if you can see it. I just found it.
Go ahead, Board Member Wright.
I wanted to ask about the CNI tape for the public to see. If someone can explain why it's not up because of the video, I think I can't remember.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
people have been texting me and emailing me about where they could find it, and I'm the wrong person to ask about where you can find something on a computer anyway. But I thought it was odd that it wasn't up, because if it was a public meeting and a video was shown, that the kids we should have had permission from the parents. So I didn't know why it was being held up. So
Well,
I always had to get permission from parents for kids to show any type of video to anybody. They had to sign off.
Well, what I remember every year in Power School, there are forms that you submit for media, consent to media. What we did do was edit that video out. Well, I didn't do anything. Mr. Bonds edited the video out of the meeting, and I believe it is now up on the YouTube channel. Just as a remember, it's a committee meeting. Although it's in public, we recognize that there is a difference between the two. So it's a committee meeting. That recording is now up on the district's YouTube page for people to have the opportunity who missed it. The minutes will be up momentarily. I say momentarily, as I doubt they're going to do it tonight, but the minutes for the meetings will be up. And that is, the official way to follow our committee meetings, because only one is public, the rest are not. So I just want to reiterate that to everyone. But the most recent CNI meeting will be up on our YouTube channel for folks to have an opportunity to see it. So that's where it is, Ms. Wright, Board Member Wright.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business for this evening? Okay, thank you. Closing new business, and I'd like to make the following motions, plural. All right, the Board of Education will meet in a special meeting Monday, November 8th, at a time to be determined. We're still awaiting folks' feedback to review and possibly take action on construction bids for the South Mountain project. That meeting will be here, be hybrid, and also virtual, so it'll be both at 525 and and on the WebEx platform. There will be public speaks and action will be taken. The Board of Education's Curriculum and Instruction Committee, which is a committee of the whole, will meet in public Tuesday, November 9th on 5:30 p.m. Is it 5:30? It's still 5:30? I just want to confirm that time. It is 6:30. Okay, I thought so. We're meeting in public Tuesday, November 9th at 6:30 p.m. using an online video conference platform. No action will be taken. It's a committee meeting. The Board of Education will be meeting in closed session Monday, November 15th, at 6:30 PM in the Superintendent's office at 525 Academy Street, as well as using the online video conference platform to discuss personnel, legal issues, negotiations, and other matters to be announced at a later date. Immediately following that closed session, the Board of Education will meet in public session, 7:30, District Meeting Room, 525 Academy Street, in person, as well as using the online video conference platform, which will include hearings of individuals. Committee can view the meeting by taking steps which will be listed on the agenda, as well as on our YouTube channel. Members of the committee who would like to attend the meeting in person, please note mask and social distance are required. Action will be taken. May I have a second? Thank you,
Second.
Board Member Cuddle. All in favor? I guess we have a. All right, I'd now like to make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting, Monday, October 18th at 10:48 PM. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Ssds. All in favor? Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. Thank you. Good night.
Stay safe, everyone.
Well, I